Yeah, yeah. I think everybody has.
Yes.
I just. I would take a picture of that.
The proclamation. You know what? If you look at Once you, whoever that was. I know. I'm not home, so. Otherwise. I'll just try all right. I'm at the joint. Oh. I Oh, really? What time you got
So the lawyer recommended something else. She did. We checked it out. She said, physical checking. Where my friend in Washington. And somebody told her, where is now 70. And that I never seen it. So the kids
I think when it's in status, on the one side, we're doing it. They do either.
Actually, that very.
He's not feeling well. That's what you know. Greg's not feeling well. There.
Yeah.
They say they well.
Oh, you did? I love Okay, 6:30, while we get started, pledge allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I wish to announce that the 48-hour notice is required under the Open Public Meetings Act was emailed to the Asbury Park Press, the Co-Star, and the New Co-Star on December the 16th of 2021. That a copy has been placed on the bulletin board in the Borough office, and that a copy has been filed with the Borough Clerk. Mr. Fennell?
Here.
Mr. Gubatose?
Here.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Here.
Mr. Weber?
Yeah.
Mayor Fox?
Here. Good evening, everybody. A couple of quick announcements. Our business administrator will not be joining us either by Zoom or in person tonight. She became a grandmother this afternoon, and her grandson Ronan and her are getting acquainted down in Voorhees, so she will not be joining us tonight. We wish her the best, and her daughter Alyssa. It's a little bit challenging, but they got through it this afternoon. Additionally, Greg Cannon, our borough attorney, has a few sick days that he's taking. We wish him the best for a quick bounce back. So Christina will be covering for him tonight. That's all the announcements around that. Okay, welcome to our 19th meeting of the year. We have one workshop topic for tonight around tree enforcement, a discussion that's an offshoot of a recent tree inventory done in town. We also have two presentations. Bradley Beach Food Pantry's 40th anniversary and a 22 best practices review. We also have an ordinance introduction relative to the fee schedules for fair share housing that or for affordable housing that we reviewed last week at a workshop, and then we have one ordinance adoption extending our brush pickup for ongoing. What I'd like to do, because we do have a number of people from the food pantry here, number one, and number two, relative to the best practices, Kim was going to actually do that review today. We have a substitute, but he can't be here on Zoom until a little later. So I kind of want to make a motion to split the difference and do ask that we do the proclamation on the food pantry up next before the workshop, and then push back the best practices probably till agenda, right around agenda item 10 communications. The gentleman doing that should be available by then. I'd like to make a motion to do that.
Mr. Fennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Okay, thank you all. So we have a proclamation. So I think where the director of the food pantry wanted to end the meeting a few weeks ago, we're going to start this meeting. A proclamation for the food pantry's 40th anniversary. I've often stated that I really believe that the food pantry is the most important enterprise in Bradley Beach. It supports and deals with food insecurity, which is a key issue in our country right now. We have a team of very dedicated volunteers that are exceptional. Our civic engagement, I would say, is without parallel. An example of that is a fundraiser that was held a month or so ago. They set a goal of $10,000 for a fundraiser, and they actually collected more than $30,000 for the food pantry. And the person that ran that was celebrating their anniversary, one of the restaurants in town. It just gives you a sense of the level of engagement that people have. And from a leadership standpoint, I think Linda Curtis is really a force of nature that has really continued to move the food pantry forward. From its beginning, Linda's picked it up in the last few years and done a great job. So with that, I'd ask, I think there's a number of people from the food pantry here. Could you all just come to the front?
I can't share it. I can take it. You got it?
Yep.
Just unlock it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We're gonna have to double you guys up here, but let me read this. It's a proclamation. Borough of Bradley Beach celebrating 40th anniversary of the Bradley Beach Food Pantry. Whereas the Bradley Beach Food Pantry, founded in October of 1982 as a joint mission of the St. James Episcopal Church, the United Methodist Church of Bradley Beach, and the Ascension Roman Catholic Church, is celebrating its 40th anniversary of continuous service. And whereas the Bradley Beach Food Pantry operates under the guiding principle of serving our neighbors in need with kindness, respect, and dignity for all. And whereas the Bradley Beach Food Pantry provides access to food Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and Thursday evenings from 6 to 7 p.m. and is entirely staffed by volunteers serving more than 1,400 families a month. And whereas the Bradley Beach Food Pantry provides school children and scout troops an opportunity to serve the community and learn about the good that giving provides the giver. And whereas the Bradley Beach Food Pantry provides food sufficient for a Thanksgiving feast and for a Christmas dinner every year for over 500 families. And whereas the Bradley Beach Food Pantry, in collaboration with St. James Episcopal Church and with the generosity of the entire community of Bradley Beach and surrounding towns, provides Christmas gifts for over 1,000 children each year. And whereas it takes a village, aptly describes the ethos of the Bradley Beach Food Pantry and its role in our community. And now, therefore, it will be proclaimed that October 7th, 2022, and all subsequent years shall be known as Bradley Beach Food Pantry Day, dated October 25th, 2022. And I will present this to. You can talk to them now.
Thank you all very, very much. I'm not going to talk long, but I am going to tell the founding story because I think it's it inspired me and I think it might inspire you. In 1982, Eleanor Pearson, then 68 years old, went to her priest at St. James Episcopal Church and asked the question, how can I grow more spiritually? And he didn't say read the Bible, and he didn't say teach Sunday school, and he didn't say come to church more often. He put her to work. From that beginning conversation, they decided that they would start the pantry. They started it in the house that's on property that's still there. It was then and now the office of St. James. And so they started then, they just started collecting food from people and buying from stores and giving food away. 10 years later, her best friend died, B. Schaefer, and left St. James a legacy, $80,000. And in her will, it said, use this money to feed the hungry. St. James raised another $80,000. They built the building that we now know as Bradley Food Pantry, no beach, Bradley Food Pantry. It's one of the longest continuous food pantries in the country. It's older than the food bank of Monmouth and Ocean County. They're only 39 years old. It's older than Lunch Break, which is a behemoth in Red Bank. It's older, again, a year older than they are. So those humble beginnings. It's also started with approval of the town. We needed approval of the town in order to have a food pantry at that location. So I thank the town. The people who need our help thank the town. It says in the proclamation, and I say it all the time, it takes a village and this village delivers. There are 3 churches involved now, St. James and St. Teresa's and Westgrove Methodist. They're helpful year after year, year round, but the entire town and surrounding towns also is what makes it possible. We will spend over $100,000 this year just to buy food. And we get most of our food for free from the food bank, which gets food from the government and other sources. So feeding 1,400 families a month is a big deal. It does take a village, and it takes over 120 volunteers. Some of them are here. So you all, I know, when the food drive happens when the food drive happens, I know you all volunteer in that way as well. And I thank you all. That's all I can say is thank you. And I sincerely hope that we're not here 40 years from now, because I sincerely hope that we don't have a hunger problem in 40 years. Thank you.
Larry.
Between him and the between Anthony Allison and the other gentleman. Yeah. Okay. Those guys leave. Okay, thanks everybody for your good feelings for the food pantry. They just do a great job. Great organization. Okay, our first workshop is on shade tree enforcement. There's been some certainly valuable work that's been accomplished to date as it relates to kind of a profile and the opportunities we have with our trees in Bradley Beach. We did conduct a tree inventory this summer. Our arborist did that. A report was issued in late August. The BA and I met with the arborist this week to really understand the elements of the report. It was very helpful. The report is kind of a basis of our go forward plan. There have been and I think this was covered at a prior meeting, 17 trees identified as red. And we got a better definition of what red was, and it was a pretty fluid definition. But we're going to continue to work through that. As important, there's about 90 trees behind that, that over the next couple of years, we really have to take a close look at. So of those 17 trees, 2 have already come down, and one tree was targeted really more from a pruning perspective. Actually, that's right across the street from me. There's some large branches that are kind of hanging off the top of the tree. I realize there's been a lot of enthusiasm around this topic, so I'm going to just stop now and let the council comment, and we'll get into the conversation.
Well, I'd like to start off, if I may, with an apology to the members of the Shade Tree Commission. I had a little bit of emotion around this myself, and violated one of my rules, which is not sending out communications. I have that emotion, so I apologize for that. I appreciate the hard work and effort and dedication that the Shade Tree Commission members put in. Having said that, though, I still think there's issues that we need to work through going forward with this list of 120 something trees that are going to need to come down in the next couple of years. I think we should develop a manner of a plan going forward. The mayor touched on it briefly, that the definition of what a red tree is and that it needs to be addressed immediately is a little bit fluid. I think the arborist term was anywhere between 5 minutes and a year, right? So given that, if there's any trees that are out there that are of immediate dangerous concerns, then yes, we should absolutely pull them down now. Address them with safety, address the safety hazard as we do with every other safety hazard that comes up in town. Beyond that, and I can't imagine that's more than at most 2 or 3, but beyond that, I think we need to sit down as a governing body and discuss the plan moving forward.
All right, we'll just go back to the beginning and talk about why we established a Shade Tree Commission in the first place. We reestablished, I should say, because we used to have one and we went, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 years without having one at all. In my estimation, we were on our way to being a town with no trees. It's because of just natural attrition, trees die. And things like people cutting down trees because they believe that the trees infiltrated their sewer lines, which is not true. A tree root, the leading edge of a tree root is like about as big as a human hair. It cannot break it open your sewer line. Your sewer line was broken because it's 100 years old, the earth moves, whatever. And the tree root, after it was broken, found its way in there and found some water. So, but because of things like that, people given that choice, they're like, cut down the tree or replace my sewer line, I'll just cut down the tree. We were going to be a town with no trees one day. So in 2020, unanimously, this council and the previous mayor reestablished the Shade Tree Commission. And you know, what was happening before that is when we did have a Shade Tree Commission prior, some trees were getting cut down, even though the Shade Tree Commission said, no, this is a healthy tree, you don't need to cut it down. So there's all sorts of stuff going on, and it's a shame that they got rid of it in the first place, but we brought it back. When we had no Shade Tree Commission, there's a huge liability to the town. Okay, my understanding is that when we have a Shade Tree Commission by our own ordinance, and that ordinance is it's following state statutes, and our Shade Tree Commission members have been trained, we are shielded from liability. I mean, not to mention the fact that we have this. It's a licensed tree expert. It's not actually an arborist. It's a higher level of certification. I also want to emphasize that when we passed the ordinance reestablishing the Shade Tree Commission, nothing changed with respect to whose responsibility the planting strip trees are. It was the homeowner's responsibility before we reestablished the Shade Tree Commission, and it is still the homeowner's responsibility to deal with planting strip trees. In the interim, when we had no Shade Tree Commission, if you had a dead planting strip tree, the owner might have called the town. Nobody bothered to look at the code of the ordinance, and perhaps DPW came and they took care of your tree. If it's a really big one, they called the county, I know for a fact, and they cut down your tree. All this time, we're having an ordinance that says it's your responsibility to take care of the tree. We passed this ordinance in July of 2020. It was unanimous, as I said. We hired this licensed tree expert in September of 2020. Hire is not the word. He works by the hour. If we don't need him, we don't pay him. We call him as little as possible, but he's been ours since September 2020. And since that time, I went back and looked at the applications. 28 people have paid the $50, the application fee. Said to the Shade Tree Commission, I have a planting strip tree that is dead or dying and I want it down. And the Shade Tree Commission, in pretty much almost every case, said, okay, and there's a couple of exceptions because they weren't dead or dying. But in most of those cases, it said, okay, you can take down your tree. And those people took down their tree. They are not required to replace it because it was dead or dying. So as we're talking about, maybe making an exception for all these red flag tree people, I want you to think about those 28 people that did the right thing. They applied, they paid the money, they got approved, they took the tree down. For the tree inventory itself, we have 1,100 street trees in town, okay? I got together with our licensed tree expert. He was almost done, but he was still doing the tree inventory, and he was astonished. He said, I can't believe how few trees you have that are in really bad shape, these red flag trees. 18 out of 1,100 is 1.6%. He told me stories about some towns, it's 12, 13% or more. It can be a lot more. That tells me that people probably are maintaining the trees to have that few. And it also tells me that those 28 people that applied and took down the tree on their own, as they were supposed to, we would have had more than 2.5 times as many red flag trees were it not for the fact that people took it on themselves as they were supposed to. Now, what went out, I want to talk about the notice of violation, code department, it sent out this notice of violation. Traditionally, when you have a notice of violation, let's just say your lawn's like 2 feet high, or you got peeling paint on your half, or whatever. You know, they send out a notice of violation, they're asking you to correct the situation, and there's a time limit on it. Now, same as this one, has a time limit. In my experience with the code office, going back years, if you, I mean, let's face it, it can take 30 days to get a contractor to come to call you back or to come and visit you and give you an estimate, okay? Code officers understand this, they're human beings, so heretofore, you know, previously, if you were making any forward progress in that 30 days toward correcting whatever you got a notice of violation for, they're okay, and they're gonna let you do that, and they're not gonna say, you know, go see the judge. They're professionals. These code professionals, they understand the difference between an absentee landlord that's dragging his or her feet because they don't want to do the work, and let's just say an elderly widow that really is having a hard time getting a contractor over, or finding money or whatever. They understand the difference. The previous code enforcers always told me that, yes, we'll work with people. The 30 days is, you got to put a number in there, but they'll work with people and they're not sending them to see the judge after 30 days. And I think that's right. So what I want to know is that how our code office still operates? I know Kim's not here. I know Paul Murphy's not here. But my guess is that if any of those people that got red flag notices on the trees in that 30 days say, yeah, you know, I finally got the tree service to call me back. They're coming over next Tuesday. That's good. That's forward progress. We don't have to judge for that. We discussed sending a letter at the September 28th meeting. We discussed it right here in this room. And we kind of all agreed that we send a letter to these folks, these 18 red flag trees. Never in my wildest dreams where I've imagined that a letter like this would have gone out. It tells people to contract the Shade Tree Commission. The Shade Tree Commission is made up of volunteers. I can't think of any other situation where it's, you know, the code office is telling people to call volunteers. It did include an application for the Shade Tree Commission to basically say to people, you need to apply to cut this tree down. Of course, it told people that we waived the fee. We all voted on that to waive the fee for these trees. And, you know, it was mentioned here that, you know, at least I thought this letter should gently, and I mean gently, remind people that planting strip trees are their responsibility. And maybe instead of saying, hey, you got 30 days or else you're going to court, maybe it could have said something like, we'll be following up with you to see how you're progressing in that 30 days or something like that. There's some comments made to the newspaper, and I just want to say that I believe that they were way out of line, way out of line. To suggest that the Shade Tree Commission went parallel and then they went out on their own and hired this arborist, I really don't understand what that statement means, Mr. Mayor. Maybe you-
Yeah, I can clarify.
Okay, because he's been our arborist since September of 2020. I don't know what you mean by they went out on their own.
As I said to the commissioner, the chair, I think I was misquoted. What I said, what I believed I said was that where we got ahead of it was that the preliminary report was out, and we still hadn't really reeled that in to say, what are we going to do? What's the plan? That was the intent of my comment. It wasn't about, and I certainly know the arborist. I've met the arborist. I part of the crew of the arborist. So I think it was just a misquote, and it was not intended to say that the Shade Tree Commission went off and hired an arborist and you know went running. The point I was trying to make was that we got the report. Now we've got to figure out a plan and how we execute the plan. So that's really the context of that comment.
Corey, did you misquote the mayor? Corey, did you misquote the mayor? No, I'm just a rhetorical question. So
It's not a rhetorical
Can I,
question.
well, I'm not done here, so no. And just with respect to what you said, Mayor, well, I'll actually leave that alone. I already mentioned the liability for the town. I believe that, you know, the town doesn't have liability. I don't know if these homeowners have liability, but I certainly would be concerned with that. And, you know, as far as, then I don't understand your comments, Mr. Mayor. If you were still trying to get a handle on these red flag trees, why would the letter go out? I mean, we sat here, we discussed it, and decided a letter would go out. And even the administrator asked the question, like, well, what does that mean, a red flag tree? Well, if they didn't know what a red flag tree meant, and I think the report was really clear with it. I just don't know why the letter went out like that, so I will leave it at that.
Yeah, well, at the time, I think and the business administrator isn't here, nor is the code person, but the as we said, we met with the arborist, and when we said, you know, what is the time frame that we should be operating with? And the answer that we got was anywhere from 5 minutes to a year. So that creates a little bit of variability in how we approach this. So, and there's large trees and small trees. So there's got to be an assessment process beyond this to say, are there imminent danger issues that we should be dealing with these 4 or 5 trees? And again, that's from the arborist, that it's not everything overnight, it's over a period of time. And even the orange and yellow, which gets us to a total of about 105 trees, we're really 2-3 years out, but we should be assessing. So there was some question, and that's the basis on which we want to try to formulate a plan to say, do we have this well in hand or not?
So, Councilor Weber, if I can address a couple of your comments and questions. The Shade Tree Commission was put down to be notified because that's what the ordinance says. A person desiring to remove or otherwise destroy a tree or trees is provided for in 425-8 shall first apply to Shade Tree Commission for permits on forms provided by the borough and containing information required in subsections B, C, and D. So that's why the Shade Tree Commission is listed there. And I disagree with your comment that people will not be required to replace trees, because the tree replacement plan, let me go back first. The application required by subsection A above shall be accompanied by a narrative and/or sketch or printed plan showing a tree replacement plan to include and comply with the following. The tree replacement plan shall provide for replacing removed or destroyed trees in the same or contiguous locations on the premises, and in accordance with the following specific requirements. The tree replacement plan shall require that the applicant replace each removed or destroyed tree with 1 or more trees, depending upon the DBH, which I don't remember what that stands for. It's has to do with the size of the tree, of the removed or destroyed tree in accordance with Schedule A, tree replacement schedule. Now, my tree that has been red flagged is a relatively small tree, so that tree replacement fee is going to get between $250 and $500. But I see one of my neighbors in the back of the room who's got an enormous tree that I would argue is not dead or dying, but is leaning over the road. It's going to cost him an additional $2,000 to replace.
Okay, that does not apply to dead and dying trees. We have members of the commission here.
Where does it say that?
It says it elsewhere in the ordinance. If it's a dead and dying tree, we require people to replace a dead tree. Well, now, Jane, we require people to replace a dead
Where
tree. It says it elsewhere in the ordinance.
No.
We do not.
Can I chime in for a second? The ordinance is subject to interpretation. It really only applies to, based on the language. Let me pull it up. When someone removes or destroys a tree without a required permit or approval under the chapter. So this instance that you're talking about is when they've been issued a violation, correct?
We've never had violations issued to that. The Shade Tree Commission doesn't issue violations. If
No,
someone
they
wants to
did notice
take
that
down-
you said they-
People take down a live tree, they want to take down a live tree for whatever reason. That's when the replacement stuff kicks in.
Which is- Right,
So when you take down a tree that's, it's like dead, or even if it's not all the way dead, if the tree expert comes and says, see, the tree's pretty bad, and it's not coming back, they are not required to replace it. And if you came to Shade Tree Commission meetings, that you would know that, and anybody that got this notice could come to the last Shade Tree Commission meeting, see how it operates. 18 red flag people do not have to replace their trees. I don't know how many times I have to say that.
Well, we
Well-
just heard that the ordinance is ambiguous as to that, so it might be interpreted that way by the Shade Tree Commission, but it's an area that needs to be addressed and tightened up. If that's the intent, then we need to get that into the ordinance.
And I would also say, Council President Sexsmith mentioned somebody in the audience, that tree, particularly on 406 Lorraine, isn't a dead tree. It's a tree that is kind of leaning, and you can interpret that as it's not a dead tree. So what do I do with it? And that's actually, I spoke to that particular resident, and that was the question he had. This isn't a dead tree, it's a leaning tree, it's a risky tree. Where do I have to go with it? So there is some ambiguity, and I think that's part of what we've got to work through.
Yeah, I
Well,
disagree.
and that was my point, that it's doesn't differentiate between a live tree, a leaning tree, or a dead tree, and that's where the ambiguity is.
So I think this is why we have a commission. And they make that determination. And every time that's been like, this is a dead or dying tree, a leaning tree, a dangerous tree, whatever, is not required to be placed with trees. You want to cut down a perfectly good tree because you want to like expand your back deck. They might ask you to do replacement trees, and that's what the fee, the schedule on replacement is. It's not for trees that need to come down for other reasons.
That's not what the ordinance says.
Doesn't make it true.
Neither is yours.
Okay, any other comments? Yes.
Yes, I guess I'd like to focus on three quick thoughts about this particular topic. First thought is, I just want to say publicly, I don't understand the animosity directed towards our volunteers. It's really important whether you believe the Shade Tree organization is helpful to the borough or not. I'm the liaison for Sylvan Lake, for Fletcher Lake. Very hardworking, conscientious volunteers, devoting their time to the borough, trying to do their best to give the council input on what's going on with their respective lakes and what we, Bradley Beach, represented by the council, can do to help those natural resources. I did for a period of time serve as a liaison to the Shade Tree Commission as well. And once again, a very hardworking, very conscientious group of volunteers. Over the past 2 years, they've planted 80 or so new trees in the borough. They're really passionate about what they do, but even folks that I've talked to that might not always be supportive of the Shade Tree Commission have actually said they think this group of people has worked really hard to serve the borough and to find an appropriate level of balance in doing so. So maybe first and foremost, I just want to caution everyone, and Council President Sexsmith, I appreciate your apology to begin this dialogue, but I just want to caution everyone. These are volunteer groups helping all of us, helping the borough and helping this council understand what we, Bradley Beach, need to do to help these different elements of our community. So when they go out, in this case, the Shade Tree Commission, and they bring in an arborist, they get the funding, which we, the council, authorized, but they get the funding to pay for an analysis of the trees in this borough. And the analysis comes back and says, we've got some red flag trees. And of course, it's fluid. If it's between 5 minutes and a year, I mean, no one's got a crystal ball that says this tree's going to fall down in 3 months, 2 days, and 4 hours. Of course, it's fluid, but the point being, these are trees that present a risk to the borough. So first and foremost, please just keep. I don't honestly care whether you support any of the commissions in the borough at all. But please keep in mind, these are volunteers just doing their best to help us, the council. And once they give us recommendations, once they bring an arborist to us, or someone who tells us how to control geese on the lakes, once they bring it to us, we own it. So anyone criticizing volunteers is really off base. Number two, picking up on what Councilman Weber said, there are liability issues. And, when we talk about these red flag trees or maybe, even secondary orange flag, whatever flag colors they are. When we're talking about trees that are a risk to people's health and safety, to property risk, branches falling on trees. God forbid, branches of trees falling on people. I mean, this is very potentially serious risk. So yes, Councilman Weber says, we have a shade tree commission, and by the laws of the state of New Jersey, we, the borough, are insulated, and perhaps homeowners are insulated, perhaps. But does that really make a difference if a branch of a tree falls on a person and kills a person, maims or injures a person? I think the answer, I think we universally would agree, it doesn't matter. If there are trees at risk to our residents' safety, we, the council, need to figure out a way to take action. And then I guess finally, my third point is how we take that action. Again, it's up to the borough council and the borough's administration, specifically code enforcement. Our council members, in case anyone's not aware of this, we do not direct code enforcement. We do not direct the mayor. We do not direct the BA. We do not direct code enforcement. We are legislators. The mayor and the BA, chief executive, chief operating officer, these people direct code enforcement and the like. So all I would say is, echoing a little bit of what Councilman Weber said, is I can't tell our code enforcement how to communicate, but I would encourage our administration to communicate in a manner that is not all that intimidating, that is not filled with red tape and references to code sections. Sure, put that in the fine print, make it legally binding. But right up front, I mean, to reach out and to say you have 30 days to figure this out, or you will show up in Superior Court. I don't think that was the right way to communicate this to our residents. And as closing on my final point on this, I would ask that our mayor and the BA and ultimately our code enforcement revisit the messaging that goes out to our residents and tries to deliver it in more of a manner of collaboration and working together to help our residents maintain their planning strips. That's the extent of my comments. Thank you.
I think everybody up here has pretty much covered all the points. I would say shortly that I agree. I think that the notice that went out was probably a little heavy-handed, and everybody needs to keep in mind that nowadays, in that industry, you may not even get anybody out to look at your tree in 30 days. Tell you if they can take it down or how much it's going to cost. So I think we need to retool the notification. And maybe we need to look at these 18 red flag trees and decide which ones are truly the 5-minute trees and take care of that.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
So I have one, actually, I have a couple of email comments. One I'm going to read towards the end, okay, and one I'm going to read right now, as I was asked to do by this person. Okay. So the comment is from Shanna Greenblatt Janoff of 414 Monmouth Avenue. And Shanna wrote, for the record, the Shade Tree Commission ordinance was provided to the commission by the municipality and then tweaked by the commission with input from the former and current mayor and council. If council president and mayor were paying attention, they had every opportunity to suggest changes as it went through its minor edit process. Based on the presentation by the Shade Tree Commission of the completed tree inventory, parentheses, see council meeting transcript from 9/28, mayor and council all voted unanimously in favor of the current protocol with which Councilman Sexsmith now takes issue. The tree inventory, which is granted funds, parentheses, cost of inventory is primarily reimbursed, was recommended by the Shade Tree Federation and a measure that was a long time coming. The borough had never before done this, and it was recommended by every entity as a responsible measure to address aging trees and safety in a shore community. Yes, the risk of the results is that it sheds light on tree deficiencies that require attention. Once determined, the borough is obligated to have these deficiencies addressed. Note that the recent letters of violation came directly from the municipality and not the commission. As for the arborist, he has been in place as the professional hired to work with the Shade Tree Commission from its recent start in 2020. He came with high endorsements and was used by many local municipalities. He is the very same professional that performed the tree inventory. This appointment of arborist and all decisions of the Shade Tree Commission are made in public forum, and Bradley Beach residents are invited to make public comments and engage at the commission meetings. The problem seems to be that Mr. Sexsmith does not agree with the determination now that he sees he has a red flag tree that requires immediate attention. The Shade Tree Commission was reinvigorated in the borough with the intention to address its treescape, to protect the errant removal of public right-of-way trees, parentheses, your resident trees are part of the larger treescape of the borough, to plant more trees and to identify problematic and or dangerous trees. This is its full scope. The Shade Tree Commission, being an arm of the municipality, like the Land Use Board, ultimately reports back and is accountable to the borough. The borough has officially endorsed every step of the Shade Tree Commission. The borough manages compliance. The Shade Tree Commission functions to serve the borough's interest and is not the arm of enforcement. As for Mayor Fox, he came into this position as the Shade Tree Commission was well underway. He endorsed the Shade Tree inventory. It was not initiated by him. In fact, when he arrived on the scene in short order, he removed one council person and put himself in as a liaison. Then a bit later, he added Mr. Gavin to the commission. Whether or not he or Mr. Gavin were paying attention, the Shade Tree Commission went forward with a responsible assessment of the health of the public trees in the borough. It was a prudent and thoughtful plan with safety in mind. If you have concerns, please speak directly to these two individuals about the current breaks of Mr. Sexsmith. Certainly, if the borough determined to remove the red mark trees at the borough's expense, then Mr. Sexsmith would have saved a few bucks. That, as I see it, is what incited this vitriol about this matter. It became a personal liability for Mr. Sexsmith. So ask yourself, should the borough and your tax dollars cover these costs? Same with issues of repair and replacement of right-of-way sidewalks, which currently come at the expense of the homeowner. These have been questions the Shade Tree Commission has asked consistently to support the interests of both borough and residents. If you read the recent article about the CoStar representing Council President Sexsmith, I encourage you all to consider these truths I write. I am a founding former member of the current Shade Tree Commission, and I fully endorse the work of the commission, the professional arborists, and the integrity and wherewithal of its members, current and past. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to just address one thing in that memo, actually a couple of things. No one was removed from the Shade Tree Commission. Councilman Gubitosi and I traded liaison positions because of a conflict between a member. So that wasn't a removal, that was actually a agreed upon, call it a trade. We had two liaisons on that board because there were 2 meetings a month. When we went to one a month, Councilman Weber was the other liaison. He stayed on, I dropped off. So there was no removal. I'm not sure why Mr. Gavin's appointment has to do with anything really, except he was appointed, he volunteered and was appointed. And in the context of supporting the Shade Tree Commission, now I didn't get that inventory going, but I fully endorsed it. I worked with George Heplick on an ongoing basis relative to trying to get it going and getting it done. As we were trying to get the grant approved to do that. So I was very interested in getting this done in an expeditious manner. And I think we're now in a position where we can now put a plan together and hopefully work with the residents to do that. Okay, thank you. Yeah, why don't we take 10 minutes of public comment till 7:30? If anybody has a comment. Yes, Mr. Sharp, Mr.
Good evening, Peter Sharp, 301 Second Avenue. I know shade tree items are going to be on the agenda tonight, but since they are, may I find out the shade tree inventory, is that going to be made public in some way so that it can be viewed by?
Yeah, and it actually needs a little bit more, it needs a little bit of refinement. Some of the numbers need to get kind of
Okay. So it's an
recast because, yeah, so yes, the answer is yes, but
Okay.
there's a couple of just minor things that have to get cleaned up.
I understand there's also a companion document where it's an assessment of where there are holes where
That's part of
trees
the
need to
report.
be planted. That's part of
That's
that.
part of the report.
Okay.
The report, no, the report, this is the report, so it's, you name it, it's got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great news. Thank you. Look forward to seeing that. Let's see. I've kind of lost track of the wording in the current ordinance, but is it still true that the town, the Shade Tree Commission has the right to plant trees in a planting strip, whether the homeowner wants it or not?
I don't think so. I'm not sure though. I can follow
Not
up.
what we do, starting the wishing tree program by its name, it's, do you wish to have a tree planted in front of your, and those are the only trees that the Shade Tree Commission is planting, wishing trees are besides the, what's the name of the other one?
Honorary.
The honorary tree, when they, so that's,
Okay,
and the
I know
reason
that's
just-
what's done, but is that what's in the ordinance?
yeah, that's a good question. I just know that that's the practice. And the other thing is, with part of the wishing trees, people are saying they're agreeing to. I agree to take care of this tree, maintain this tree and whatever, so it's.
Yeah, I really like that. I like the fact that it's volunteers, people who agree to do that.
Mhm.
I'd be dismayed. I think the original version said that the commission or the town could plant a tree in a planting strip, whether the homeowner wanted or not. And
Follow up though.
that kind of points a little dilemma when you come to Mr. Sexton's situation. I know it's not the exact situation, but if that tree were to die, then you have the situation where a homeowner is forced to pay to take down a tree that he never wanted in the first place. That I think is kind of an ethical problem.
Which is why we don't do that.
Okay, well, I understand, I'm trying to understand practice versus ordinance, so, but I'm with you, I don't understand the wording of the current ordinance right now either. And then finally, to Mr. Gubatosi's comment, yeah, I think these Shade Tree Commission people have been great. They've taken a really crummy ordinance and they've really brought the best out of it. The fact that it's all done on a volunteer basis. For people accepting trees, I think that was great because I thought it would be pretty draconian if it followed the rule that the Shade Tree Commission plant trees wherever they wanted to. So yeah, I'm in a position where I love the volunteers, hate the ordinance. So, and I'll go take the ordinance over here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Nancy Meadow, Ocean Park condominiums. I agree wholeheartedly with the way the Shade Tree Commission has presented itself. I don't know of any other commission in town that reports back and accomplishes things in the way they do. That being said, it is my understanding that what is in my planting strip is my responsibility. So, when the water company destroyed my grass, didn't replace it, it became my issue. Okay, I did get the town to put it back, but that's because I spoke up here enough. But if I have to cut my own grass in the planting strip and be responsible for it, whatever else is there, I would think if you have a tree in your planting strip, that's your responsibility to maintain. And just as if my grass presents a hazard to the community, if your tree presents a hazard to the community, I think it's your responsibility. We, the people, should not have, how much is we, the people, through our taxes, have to pay for every little thing in the borough? That's really what a lot of this comes down to. Where do you draw the line? Again, it comes into character and morality, not necessarily legal. But I would urge the council to consider it, and now we have a tree gate with all the other gates that we have, and it's really not funny, very much.
No, it's not. Thank you. Yes.
Rich Stetson, 600 Third Avenue. I have a whole list of things I was going to mention, but most of them have already been covered. The thing that really stood out to me is the softening of the message. I think if a softer message went out, perhaps the reaction to it wouldn't have been what it was. We wouldn't be spending all this time talking about it. I do have one thing I'm going to mention here. When I saw the wording in this resolution 2022-250, it stated in part, not to burden residents with the cost of remediation or removal. That brings me to something that I've said before this meeting. There are many of us who put in money to replace our sidewalks. I replaced our sidewalk because there was a soft message that went out, hey, if you don't do this, we're going to start using code enforcement, which I interpreted as being summons to do it. To avoid that, we went ahead and did it. I'm sure a lot of other people did the same thing. Now we're beautifying the town. Oh, just wondering if you listen.
No, I am. Now we're beautifying the town. Yes.
Okay. I don't know how it's determined which blocks are determined to beautify the town and they get these sidewalks, but with this resolution, it appears to me that the efforts here are to put this in the same similar category. Some people are going to have the trees removed by taxpayers who have already paid their money to take care of their sidewalks and the trees as well. In that some other people, select people, are going to perhaps benefit by the results of this ordinance resolution that goes through. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Real short, I agree with both.
Name.
From me and from Fourth Avenue, Neil Mullen. I just think it's really important to realize that I think when you buy your home here, you know you're responsible for what's in front of your property. And I've seen people have to replace their sidewalks. It's the same exact thing that these two were just saying. So the tree, sidewalk, the grass, whatever it is, we all know that as homeowners. So it shouldn't be a shock to anybody when they have to protect the community. And a tree's even more dangerous, but sidewalks, we all know that we want them to be passable. We all take the snow off of our sidewalks. The town doesn't do that. It's all the same category. So I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to ditto what those.
Thank you. Yep.
Don Greenberg, 302 Park Place Ave. I kind of agree with everything wherever Mr. Vanel said and several of the other residents. I had one question, comment on the resolution for Shade Tree. It's on the, therefore be it resolved, there's no timeline on that. So you have 18 red flag trees between 5 minutes and a year, as you guys said. Shouldn't there be some sort of timeline in this resolution to stay the enforcement? 60 days, 90 days, but you can't just have it open-ended. Because, you know, then nothing ever happens if it's open-ended. So is that something that you would consider adding to this?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I think the issue is right now is having that span. It struck me, it surprised me, the arborist came out with the span that wide.
no, maybe we can have the arborist come back and say, hey, these are the ones that have to go today.
Well, that's part of some of a couple of the tweaks in the report that could also be helpful, because even the 18 people have questions. A number of people have, well, a couple of people I know have had questions about, let me understand exactly what's wrong with my tree and why I gotta move it, or do I have to or not?
Right. And for that I mean, it's kind of ambiguous in the letter that was sent out. They call it Shade Tree Commission, they call the enforcement officer. I think, as some of the other people said, you know, that letter has to be clarified. Because you can't just expect to call volunteers and get an answer. I mean, the person to call should be code enforcement. And, you know, I think that's who you need to call if you have questions, not the Shade Tree Commission. Because I think the code enforcement officer, he's the one issuing it, he should have a handle on, you know, what is expected to be done and how to do it. So, I wish they could have been here tonight as well, the BA and the code enforcement officer, if we were discussing this.
I'm sure the VA would like to be here too.
Oh, if he's sick, I'm sorry to hear that. What else? I think that's about it. Steph, has nothing to do with this, but I am officially a resident of Bradley.
Well, yeah, sure. David Jennings of 406 Lorraine Avenue. A few sort of gray areas, I think, in all of this. So I think, you know, a couple of points. One, some of those trees have just got way too big. They should have been addressed 50 years ago. You know, when you see the size, and they've got way too big. The second thing is the electricians or the electrical workers. Utility companies, yeah, big problem. Certainly with the tree we've got the violation for, it's not surprising, it's actually leaning. All the branches are leaning one direction where they top and cut it. So I think, you know, future maybe that they should address the trees in a more, you know, even manner, so they don't actually lean because all the branches are leaning one direction. That's really I think a contributing factor to why this particular tree, you know, is leaning. The tree was in the same position as when we purchased the house 3 years ago, so it's sort of all come out right now. I mean, we look after our farming strip as best we can, but some of these things are a little bit, I think, out of our control. So just wanted to sort of address the fact there's a couple of, it's very easy to say chop it down, but there are a lot of gray areas in there as well.
Well, I met with Mr. Jennings the other day, and his is a good example in the report. In the report, there was an annotation that I think it said something like resident concerned. So my question, just get the right comment, resident concerned.
Yeah.
My question to the arborist was, is this on the report because the resident's concerned, or is there a real issue? Because I've seen that tree and it doesn't, you know, it leans, but it's not by any means, it's a healthy tree.
Alive and everything, you know, I think what it is the branches are slightly almost the other side.
Yeah, so maybe there's a way to mitigate that. And we are also speaking with the main utility company. We have a representative in town here to try to get a sense of, you know, what can we do going forward?
Yeah.
Because there are some trees in town that they've just mangled. You know, they just flat out mangled. And their job is clear the line and, well, clear the line, but at what expense? There's a couple of trees that just, you know, they've really done a pretty cool job relative to that. So it's a good observation. Yeah.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll close
We
this
have
out.
one person on Zoom.
Oh, Zoom? We got a Zoom?
I have a person.
Okay,
Okay, we'll have to do Zoom and move on Zoom.
okay, on Zoom, we have Lauren Egbert. Good evening, Lauren.
Hello. I just wanted to first thank the council and the mayor for the concern about trees. Everybody's obviously being extremely thoughtful about it. I was on the initial Shade Tree Commission, and the one point I definitely wanted to address was the idea that there's any ambiguity in the ordinance with respect to whether you need to plant replacement trees if you remove a dead and dying tree. That is, you know, Mr. Cannon wrote the ordinance. I read it with a fine-tooth comb time and time again. That was not one of the areas where there was any ambiguity. As a matter of fact, when we composed the permit, we were even very careful to make that clear. Now, I don't know what's happened since then. I would tend to doubt that aspect has changed. And I would just like to add a perspective. I've worked with the judiciary for many, many years on many, many policies. And I'm familiar with the way that ordinances and legal things of that nature are written. And you can't pluck a paragraph or a half a paragraph or one paragraph from an ordinance. You have to, the whole description of when you have to replace trees with that piece that was read taken in isolation is just not a way that you can approach an ordinance. And this one, at least on this point, was very clear.
Okay, thank you. Okay, last question.
Yes, I'd like to speak also.
Okay, just one moment, please.
Sure.
Hi, good evening, Jane DeNoble, 612 Third Avenue. I'm also a volunteer of the Shade Tree Commission. I just want to reiterate that, yes, we had 0.0. We had nothing to do with these violations sent out, and it was shocking that not only to me, but of course, the chairman, George Heflick. A kinder notification would be greatly appreciated. A lot of times I find people, they stop me, they say, hey, what's up with my tree? Well, they have a green ash tree and it's a yellow tree. And it's going to be needing replacement or need to be taken down. And you are correct. We do not have to replace dead trees. It says right on the application, replacement for live trees. So that's that. And so I also want to say, a lot of times I find it commonplace that the homeowners are responsible for the planting strip trees. In fact, even with the wishing tree, it says, as with any tree in the planting strip, you assume all future responsibilities. Same with Belmar, Spring Lake, pretty much nationwide and even worldwide. And it could be worse. In New South Wales, they say if you remove a native tree in New South Wales, you could be liable for a fine of $1.1 million. So things could be worse. And things could be nicer too. This is the end of the world scenario. If we have trouble and we're looking for food, you are allowed to grow fruit trees in the planting strips as long as you share the produce with your community. So that's always a nice idea too. But again, it's all about the code enforcement. Shade Tree had nothing to do with it. We're just volunteers trying to make things nice for Valley Beach. Thank you so much.
Okay, last question on Zoom.
Okay, I believe it was Lori Sender.
Yes,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, can you just state your address for me, please?
I'm sorry?
Address?
407 Second Avenue, Bradley Beach.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okie dokie. So I can't see anybody, but I guess you can see me.
Yes.
Okay, so I have a question for the mayor about the $10 million budget that's going to be on the referendum for Lorraine.
You're gonna have to wait till the comment section. This is. a specific-
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
What time is that at?
Yeah.
Between 5 minutes and a year. 5 minutes and a year.
What time?
That'll depend on everybody else. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't decide. We're gonna move now. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Ms. Sender. Okay,
You're saying after this whole thing, we can talk, right?
you can call me. Yeah, absolutely.
Wait, I don't mean call you. I mean, can I speak at this meeting?
Lori, at the end of the meeting, there's a 5-minute
Yeah.
open comments on anything you want.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
If you can't make it till then, you can call. Okay, let's move to agenda item 7, which is approval of minutes, October 12 minutes. Do I have a second for approval of minutes?
Second,
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose,
yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
Abstain?
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Fox.
Yes. Approval of executive session minutes from October 12, 2020.
Second,
Mr. Bennell,
I'm make a quick statement here, as I see on the meeting minutes. There's a note that I left at 8:45 and the meeting didn't end until 10 after. When we went into that meeting, Greg Cannon delivered his information to us, took not even 5 minutes. And then some conversation ensued. And Larry started steering that conversation towards deliberation, which is a massive Open Public Meetings Act violation. And it can draw a permanent injunction. There are case laws out there about it in towns as close as Interlaken. And when I started to realize that this was what was going on, I thought it best that I should probably just get myself out of the meeting, so I excused myself. Larry reacted with heated, he yelled at me and told me I wasn't allowed to leave the meeting. And as I walked out that door right there from the back room, Larry had an encore of an explosive physical violent reaction. He slammed that door so hard, it shook the dais floor out here. Now, I know there's going to be pushback. There's going to be downplay. That's a given. If you ask me again tomorrow or next week or even next month or next year, you're going to get the same account of that situation from me because it's true. I don't even need my Bible for this one because there were 4 other people in the room. So with that, I am going to have to abstain from approving these meeting minutes. Thank you.
Mr. Gubatose?
My question about the minutes is that, and I know we can't discuss the topics in public, but creates a little bit of a dilemma for me because the minutes are particularly vague around the topics. So I honestly would like a little more definition around, topically what we talked about. It's more about the tone of the meeting.
They were approved by the borough attorney. Before I
No,
submitted
I'm
them
not,
to you.
well, I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying, I don't think it captures enough of.
Okay, and I can't honestly remember everything that is going on because that meeting was pretty intense.
No, it was intense for those who didn't walk out the door. But I'm going to have to vote no.
Councilman Sexsmith,
Abstain.
Councilman Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Fox.
Yes. Okay, public comment pertaining to the agenda items only, 5 minutes limited, and 1 instance per participant, please. Any questions on them? Oh, yes.
Thomas J. Cohen, 612 Third Avenue. I have a question about the bills list, and I really feel bad that Ms. Humphrey's not here, although I congratulate her on her grandchild. That was fantastic. On page 7 of the bills list, I don't know who, Mayor, can you help me with it?
I don't know. Let's take a look. Page 7.
Yeah, it would be the item from the Liberty Line seal coating. It looks like L0190. It's 3rd up from the bottom.
Yeah, I believe, and I can verify this and get back to you, that we've been doing some repairs with Public Works on some areas of Main Street that we were finding problematic. So I would think that's what that is, but I can certainly get back to you and verify.
Okay, because my question is that it's $6,470 we paid to Liberty Line seal coating. And this is very specific to say Main Street curves and Ocean Avenue curves. Well, Ocean Avenue is a county road and Main Street is a state highway. So would we be reimbursed by the county or the state for this
Well,
$6,470?
Yeah, part of this, when it says Ocean Avenue, I'm not sure if it's in Ocean Avenue or not, so I'll verify that. So,
Pretty specific. And
Well-
my question is,
well, as you may or may not know, we are doing a lot of work around Ocean Avenue right now, going west, so it could be some of that at this point.
yeah, because I mean, if we're striping on Main Street, I mean, is there any reason we're not delineating the parking spaces, which we've asked for a long time? And if we have the ability to stripe the curbs, why can't we put the striping in on Main Street and delineate the parking for the businesses?
Because that has to be specifically state approved.
Well, you said that was ongoing. We had something going on. Did anything happen?
It's ongoing.
Oh, okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to the next agenda item, which.
Just one more comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, two, I'm sorry. The question.
All right, you go first. Nancy.
Okay, welcome. Here now. Regarding the bill list. Mr. Flynn brought up in the previous meeting, again, which I've said numerous times. Again, Mr. Weber, how many times do I have to repeat myself? This is not directed to you, but you did make that comment this evening, that repetition. The issue is to approve the expense prior to receiving a bill. Once we have the bill, once the service has happened, we have no choice but to pay it. So again, I point out we do things backwards. In addition, it is quite insulting, and I constantly say this to the COO. The descriptions on the bill list that are provided to the public, since we don't get to see the invoices, need to be accurate. So there are too many times office supplies. Which office? Who? Which department? We don't know the codes for the departments. That's not given to us with this. And to Mr. Cohen's point, he's asking for what we're paying for the ceiling. So again, it is to do, in my opinion, with failure of this administration to steward our money accurately. Thank you.
Thank you. There's one more.
I can do it from here if you want. I don't do it. Don Greenberg.
It's actually important because my
Oh,
sticks are
for the owl. Still can't help it. Great. Don Greenberg, 302 Park Place Ave. I just have a quick question. Were the executive session minutes approved or not? Because you had 2 abstentions, 1 no, and only 2 yes.
Yeah.
Is there, oh, so you can approve with just 2.
Yep.
For the votes. Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move now to the ordinances. We have one introduction and 1 adoption. The introduction is for an ordinance amending chapter 450 zoning of the borough's revised general ordinance to include a new section entitled development fees. For those who weren't here last week, that was a presentation done by our fair share housing lawyer and our planner. We're continuing to try to move this forward, and this was a step in that direction. So I will open this to council comments. Okay, then I'll close council comments and make a motion to introduce 2022-14.
Second.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexton?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yeah,
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Ordinance now for adoption, ordinance 2022-13. It's an ordinance amending chapter 286, littering, solid waste and recyclable collection of borough's revised general ordinances to extend brush collection through December of each year. So I'll make a motion to open the first council comments. Are there any council comments on 2022-13?
Just that this is a change to reflect reality. The last several years as global warming and climate change has been happening. The growing season has been extending further, and the need for brush collection into December has been continuing. DPW has been creating an on-the-fly brush collection for the second week in December, and this is just making it permanent going forward.
I just want to find out, Mr. Mayor, this is definitely, in your opinion, this is definitely a council issue. This is not a day-to-day operation type of thing. This is something for the council.
Yes, this is expressly spelled out in the ordinance that what months have collections on which dates. This is simply adding the second change in the ordinance, December ordinance.
Thanks. Okay, if there's no council comments, we'll open it for make a motion to do the adoption hearing for the public.
Second.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexton?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Okay, is there any public comment on this ordinance? Anything on Zoom?
Nope.
Okay, so we will close the adoption hearing and move. I'll make a motion to close the adoption hearing and move to approve resolution 2022-13.
Second.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yeah.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Okay, communications, two things, a memo for on-premise raffle license for 2022, license 2022 6 for the Bradley Beach PTA and to waive the municipal raffle license fee of $20. Actually, just one thing on communications. We'll do the consent agenda and, hopefully by then, by the end of the consent agenda, Matt Holman, if you see Matt Holman up there,
I do not so far.
okay. We'll just.
I'm keeping my eye out, though.
Okay, let's go to, the consent agenda. We have, a number of items on the consent agenda, 2022-240, the bill list for October 25th. 2022-241, the approval to reschedule of the Alzheimer's Association to conduct their annual walk for Saturday, November 5th from 9 to 1:30. 2022-242, approving the annual borough bonfire for November 25th, 2022. 2022-243, authorizing street opening permit deposit refund in the amount of $500 for 400 Marion Avenue. 2022-244, authorizing a tax overpayment refund to Rocket Mortgage in the amount of $4,692.01. And 2022-245, the approval of raffle license 2022-6, the Bradley Beach Elementary School PTA and waiver of the $20 municipal fee. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Mr. Vanel?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Okay, we're going to individual resolutions. I'm going to, I'll hold on 2022-246 because we really should get a quick overview from Matt. Let me go to 2022-247, authorizing member participation in the Bergen County Cooperative Pricing System. Make a motion to approve 2022-247.
Second.
Mr. Vanel?
Some work getting into a cooperative in Bergen County. That kind of out of the realm here.
My understanding is that these cooperatives are open statewide, and that's just another opportunity to try and find something for less.
Yeah, and the BA does have experience with this particular one and said it's pretty, she's had good experience.
Okay, Mr. Vanel, you said yes?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yeah.
Mayor Fox?
Yes, 2022-248, authorizing 2023 agreement with the Associated Humane Societies for Animal Control Services within the borough. Make a motion to approve 2022-248.
Second.
Mr. Vanel?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yeah.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. 2022-249, a resolution approving shared services agreement with the Borough of Avon by the Sea for repair, replacement of failing stormwater outfall infrastructure in the area of Sylvan Lake. Make a motion to approve 2022-249.
Second.
Mr. Vanel?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yeah.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. 2022-250, a resolution staying enforcement of violation notices for shade tree violations recently issued by Borough. Make a motion to approve 2022-250.
Do we want to add say a 90-day time limit to that?
I'm fine with that. So I'll amend that to say resolution staying enforcement of code notices for shade tree violations recently issued by Borough to a 90-day limit.
I'd actually like to, make a comment of the statement. That's okay, Mr. Mayor?
Okay, we're gonna wait till you get to your load or before.
Whatever you like.
When we get down to you, we'll.
Second.
Mr. Vanel?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
I need a repeat of what it is we're voting on, right?
No, because I didn't, I'm not making a statement. This is a motion on the resolution.
On the resolution.
No.
So I had questions about this resolution. Number one, in concept, I agree with it. I just want to make sure for the record, I say to the world that, as I said earlier, I thought the notice that went out was just poorly done, partially done. And my biggest concern this resolution, and I was hoping Ms. Humphrey might be here to give us some guidance, or perhaps the mayor can give us guidance, is the council has had a handful of exchange emails with Ms. Humphrey, who I believe has indicated to us that we should not, we, the council, should not direct code. So, for example, in this resolution, if we say the mayor and council will work through this, I believe, maybe I'm wrong. There's something really done on record, at least with our email, saying that the council would not be involved, Mr. Mayor.
Wouldn't be involved with directing code specifically. That doesn't mean you're not involved in the planning process. We're communicating that plan.
Maybe a borough attorney can weigh in on that one. To me, it's no different than what we did for waiving code enforcement for the COVID restrictions for Main Street businesses, for cafe licenses. And
Oh, I didn't
Things like
understand the
that.
context of your question. I'm sorry. I misunderstood your question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's just, for example, I had circled and underlined things that members of the audience have already brought up. I don't like the wording, without burdening residents with the cost of remediation and removal. I don't think that should be a goal of this delay. I think this delay, if we do this, if we approve it, give it 60 days, 90 days, some finite time frame. But I don't think this is about not burdening residents with the cost. It's more about figuring out the right way to do it, which to me is a code issue.
I think this comment is more around, can we help, meaning, for instance, could the county help us with a rate or a process to do this? I think it's more around that. It's not around, I think that's what it's about. And additionally, even the public utilities, the arborist told us that often you can bring the public utilities in on these big trees that are in the line of their lines, and they'll actually take those down to a point which makes the removal much less burdensome on the resident. So those are a couple of examples. But I mean, if you want to strike that comment from the resolution, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I don't have a problem doing that. Because I think it's just, we're trying to seek solutions that work for everybody. I think that was the intent of the comment.
If I can comment, if you just strike out without burdening and put to mitigate the burden on residents. You're seeking a solution to mitigate any type of burden.
I'm fine with that. If that's. All right, then, okay. All right, anything else, Councilman?
No, I'll wait to hear your comments and others.
We're in the middle of a vote.
We're in the middle of our vote.
Well, then I'm back to, I'd like to strike this. If I'm voting yes, I need to strike this and I need to add the wording within 90 days.
We said we were gonna do that.
And strike.
Well, we said we were gonna say mitigate, yeah. And 90 days. We said we were gonna add that.
Yeah, well, it's a technicality, and mitigate sounds fine to some, but I don't think I think whatever we do is captured in the final statements to say, Mayor and Council of Borough of Bradley Beach hereby state enforcement of violation notices until such time as the mayor and council are able to review and evaluate the issue with potential solutions. So, and we had 90 days, but that is encompassing potential solutions.
What paragraph?
I
is
was
that?
referring to the paragraph before that.
Okay.
I know I'd like to strike that.
Oh, okay.
I just think I think it's basically, my opinion, I think that's basically teeing up an exception to our ordinances that I think is a slippery slope, and we should not tee up exceptions to our ordinances unless we want to change the ordinance itself. That's just my opinion. So I guess at the moment,
So
I'm gonna vote no because we don't change it.
okay, Councilman, I'm sorry.
I'm going to abstain.
Oh, that's right. You're
Yeah. And This was emailed to the clerk. I thought it was gonna get read earlier, but this is a letter from the,
That's the second one I'm gonna
Oh.
read at the end towards,
okay, I'm gonna save you the trouble and read it now.
oh,
That's okay. I have a statement from the Shade Tree Commission, and it's about this ordinance, which is a shade tree ordinance. So I'm gonna read the letter that George wrote. Dr. George Heflick, 115 Ocean Park Avenue, Chairman of the Shade Tree Commission. Mayor and Council, I'm out of state this week, and I'd like this letter read in my stead. I need to comment on the events of the last 2 weeks. All this stems from the tree inventory that the Shade Tree Commission helped get for the borough. Its main purpose is to proactively identify tree-related public safety issues. Our licensed tree expert listed 18 trees that needed immediate attention. This was addressed at the September 28th council meeting. At the time, I stated, quote, "The Shade Tree Commission should not be policing or enforcing any rules. We are volunteers." Mr. Cannon stated, quote, "We specifically adopted the Shade Tree Ordinance to not have the Shade Tree Police. They don't have the power to actually take trees down." Ms. Humphrey confirmed, quote, "There is no mechanism to allow us to do that." The discussion concluded with Ms. Humphrey stating, quote, "The immediate solution would be to notify the residents that they have something that was red flagged, see what the response is, and then put out a proposal. We'll send out a notification." Councilman Weber added to gently remind them. Instead, the administration sent out a harsh and improper notice of violation, claiming it came from the Shade Tree Commission. It threatened residents with municipal court if they did not remove their tree by 8 a.m. on November 12th. The commission was never told about this and would have spoken against it. Several justifiably irate recipients started contacting us. I had no idea what was happening and called Ms. Humphrey on Tuesday afternoon to try to find out. She never called me back, leaving me to try to help neighbors who were as confused as I was. Then Council President Sexsmith published both on Facebook and in the newspapers a litany of accusations against the commission. He embellished it with personal insults, calling us a commission of busybodies. He stated that the commission directed me to spend thousands of my hard-earned dollars to remove a tree, that the commission can direct taxpayers how to spend their money, and that he is going to rein in this commission's ability to spend your money. I was attested to at the meeting. The Shade Tree Commission does not have the ability to do any of those things. In fact, your commission has done nothing but try to save us money from day one. The borough needed a tree inventory, so we volunteered dozens of hours writing for the grant, getting Bradley $15,000, getting a $15,000 agreement. We suggested waiving the application fee for flag trees. I volunteered the possibility of the Shade Tree budget money to help. We were happy when Ms. Humphrey stated she was going to get proposals, which made us think the borough might take care of this as a one-time fix. Mr. Sexsmith then accused the commission that the commission is a power grab. As you heard that night, we wanted nothing more than to turn all decision-making over to you. Mr. Sexsmith is council president and knew the truth of the facts, yet he deliberately defamed volunteers and besmirched the reputation of good people in the public press so that he could end with the campaign pledge. In the interview, Mr. Fox had a chance to correct these falsehoods and perhaps give a word of praise. Instead, he added to the fiction, quote, "Unfortunately, the Shade Tree Commission ran a little bit parallel and on their own, and they went out and hired this arborist." Please refer to the minutes of 6/22/21, resolution 2021-172. Mr. Fox himself actually made the motion to approve the tree inventory and to use our licensed tree expert. Mr. Fox and the council crafted the resolution that hired the tree expert for the inventory, not the Shade Tree Commission. The continued lack of communication and transparency is bad enough. Now we have improper notices of violation, Facebook falsehoods, and attacks on character. I have lived here for 23 years, and now I have to wonder what my fellow residents think of me, thanks to Mr. Sexsmith. This is turning neighbor against neighbor and harming the reputations of volunteers who've done nothing but spend many hours improving our town, all for the sake of agendas. Enough already. That was a letter by George Heflick, chair of the Shade Tree Commission. Since he's not here, I will make sure that you apologize and that you were misquoted, but I'm going to vote no on this resolution.
Mayor Fox.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, it's 8 o'clock.
Just hold on 1 second.
Let me see if we can find,
Andrew Holman, right?
no, Matt Hole.
That one, sorry. Don't see her.
All right, I can take a shot at. Why don't we, I'll just,
We'll do it next meeting.
we can't, we need to do it this meeting, it's a timing issue,
Here's the resolution to help though.
yeah, you have to do it, yeah. So our best practices inventory, it's an annual review of municipalities. It's due to be filed by 11/10. The purpose of it is to grade a municipality on multiple factors that range from personnel, ethics, finance, transparency. Based on the grade the municipality receives, we get a result in the reduction of state aid. I'm pleased to announce that Bradley Beach has scored of 32 out of the required 24 points minimum. So you need 24 points to get 100% reimbursement on state aid, et cetera. And that scale goes down to 0. So the scale starts at 0, goes to 50, 75, 100. So we are at 32 points on 100, 100% approval. The report, it's about a 6-page report that goes through and describes different elements and then you score it. So we're in good shape with this report, and without Matt here, maybe that's
You pretty much nailed it.
yeah, so that's pretty much it. Really, Matt was or Kim was, if there are any questions by the council, if there's no questions, we can just move towards the
I'll just
resolution.
make a comment. I believe we do this every year.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. So if there's no,
The benefit of somebody giving a presentation about it, I think.
well, no, I think it was just made basically to state that and to say, do you have any questions? So it was more than that.
Yeah, it probably would just benefit our residents to hear more about it because as we've said, this is something we go through every year and it's a very comprehensive list of best practices that when I was first exposed to it, I thought, wow, somebody did a really good job setting up standards that we should all judge ourselves by. So I think the process is excellent, even though we don't have the time to go through it all tonight.
Yeah. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve 2022-246, acknowledging the current year 2022 best practice of inventory. Go second.
Second.
Mr. Burnett?
Yeah.
Mr. Sexton, Mr. Gubatoni?
Yes.
Mr. Sexton?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Okay, we'll move to mayor and council reports. Councilman Brunel.
Okay. The report for the fire department, the operation period ended October 25th. Department responded to one request for the department. Department conducted 2 training drills for the safety and education of the members. The department conducted the annual fire prevention week program at the grammar school. The department provided standby crews for the power outage of 10/19. There were no out-of-town mutual aid requests, and the department requested 2 mutual aid for this operational period. They're looking for volunteers for the fire first aid, I guess. Oh, wait, sorry, I missed first aid, okay. For the same operational period for the first aid squad, they responded to 5 day calls and 3 night calls for a total of 8. 7 were medical, 1 for fire. The squad participated in the annual fire prevention week program at the grammar school along with the fire department. The squad provided standby crews for the power outage on 10/19. There were no out of town requests for mutual aid. The squad requested no mutual aid for the operational period. As usual, both departments are always looking for volunteers. You can email me, you can go down to the fire department, you can go down to the first aid squad, talk to them in person. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Councilman Gubatoni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, for starters, I am the Civil Light Commission liaison. They have a meeting tomorrow night, October 26th, right across the parking lot at the Piazza Center. I was notified by the chair of the Sylvan Lake Commission, that she is still awaiting a response, from our administration, Mr. Mayor, you or perhaps Ms. Humphrey. She gave me a laundry list of things, but she said she sent an email on October 3rd and she referenced of the park on Ocean Ave that wasn't completed, questions about the bulkhead, concerns about invasive weeds, and an outstanding issue regarding their sign. So my only statement here is that I request that our administration follow up with Ms. Validity of who's the chair of the Sylvan Lake Commission, and hopefully resolve some of her questions before their meeting tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Number two, and I actually see the resident who I'm about to reference sitting in the audience, but there have been site triangle concerns referenced, specifically for the corner of Madison and Brinley. And a resident, Ms. Linda Duffy, has brought these issues to our BA, Ms. Humphrey. And Ms. Humphrey has responded that she is working closely with the county to assess that particular site triangle. I think one of the challenges we in Bradley Beach have is that because of the challenge we have ongoing with parking, there may be more than one site triangle that we've shorted a little bit in terms of whatever the appropriate distance. I believe it's typically 25 feet would be the typical distance. And there may be instances throughout the borough where we don't have that full amount of space. So I applaud Ms. Duffy for bringing this to our attention. But I also would say to all residents, if any of you have concerns about safety, concerns about traffic safety, or bicyclist safety, pedestrian safety as a result of site triangles that may not be sufficiently large, please let us know. And my third bit of information actually just comes from my mailbox. It just came a couple days ago, but Mr. Mayor, I think we're all aware of this request from the surf school. Did you see this yet?
Yes.
And I'm going to read this just to give the residents an understanding of what's going on here. I think it's a very good news message. The head of the surf school writes to the council, mayor and council. Thank you for your support and for helping make our 14th year serving the town of Bradley Beach a safe and successful one. We would also like to thank the recreation department, the lifeguards, the police, fire, and public workers for their goodwill in helping grow our surf school into a well-known attraction for local families and visitors to Bradley Beach. We appreciate the opportunity to bring our unique brand of surfing and ocean safety to the next generation of Bradley Beach. There are some things we would not be able to do without the town's support, and we are especially proud of the success of the collaboration with the Bradley Beach Recreation Department. By working with recreation directors, most recently Sean Heater and Elizabeth Hernandez, we have been able to give hundreds of local Bradley Beach kids the opportunity to attend our surf and ocean safety camp at no cost via scholarship. Our company's commitment to give back to the local communities we serve has varying degrees of effectiveness in each town, and we can proudly say that we have the most traction with the local kids, specifically in Bradley Beach. The 2022 calendar year is the final year on our current lease. We would like to kindly ask the mayor, council members, and the borough administrator to begin the RFP process to continue this concession. The current structure of this existing lease, a 3-year term and 2 potential 1-year extensions, is greatly appreciated, as it did allow us to confidently invest in our operation, knowing we had more than just a few years on the lease. And then they just closed with a nice thank you to all of us. So bottom line, it sounds to me like these folks have done a great job, and they're very appreciative of all the resources that the borough has provided, especially our police and our safety broadly. I know, again, the administrator's not able to join us this evening, but with that said, I'd like to make a motion that we direct our borough administrator to move forward requesting an RFP for this process.
If I may say something about that, they're actually good until 2023.
Oh, they are.
Yes, they are.
Okay, so they're great at surfing.
They didn't realize that. Yeah.
They're legally easy.
Yeah, I checked the concession, and the resolutions that were done. and
Okay,
They
I
have
just
one more
didn't,
year.
I didn't.
No, that's okay. I just discovered it myself, so.
Okay, in that case, that concludes the comments.
Hey, Council President, second.
Councilman Gubatowski need to withdraw that.
No,
Maybe not.
no, that's okay.
I withdraw my motion. No, we didn't get there.
I just, you know.
Yep.
So the police activity report, the following is police activity report since the last meeting. An individual was arrested for driving while intoxicated after striking a parked vehicle. On another occasion, a different individual was also arrested for driving while intoxicated after striking several vehicles in both this town and a neighboring one. A local subject was arrested for burglary. Chief Weed would like to thank everyone who stopped by the first meet and greet event. He'd also like to thank Perfect Park for hosting us, and the department hopes to have similar events throughout the town in the future. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Council President. Councilman Weber.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Kind of related to the environmental commission, but not really. Our school, the Bradley Beach Elementary School, achieved the sustainable school status from through Sustainable Jersey, and they got their award down in Atlantic City at the School Board Association, and members of the school board were there, the teachers that helped see it through. They were awarded. So kind of like the environmental commission has done in the last 2 or 3 years. I guess the time they're making the third try, but the school did it for the first time, so they're to be congratulated. We are very close to the Sandy anniversary, and want to remind everybody that there are still people that are not back in the homes after Sandy. We did pretty good in this town, but all those places much further south, Barrier Islands, Back Bays, it's a long road for a lot of those people. But on that note, I want to once again encourage our land use board to add a climate vulnerability assessment to the master plan. To restate what I said before, the state changed the law in they passed the law in early 2021, saying that every town, next time they open up their master plan, they need to do this climate vulnerability assessment. And it's not just climate change and sea level rise. It's everything. It's droughts, it's forest fires, it's increased rainfall, and everything that comes with climate change. Certainly in our town, sea level rise part of it's going to be important. And you know, I've asked for the land use board to do this before. I just want everybody to know that I engaged with Rutgers. Rutgers has this climate change resource center, and they're essentially doing the sea level rise and part of this climate change vulnerability assessment. So it's kind of been done. I was on a call with the mayor and the administrator, and that I guess it was much earlier this year, but it was in February, much earlier this year. And so yes, our land use board could wait until they're planning to open up the master plan again and add this climate vulnerability assessment, but I would encourage them to do that sooner rather than later, because I think we're pretty vulnerable in that regard. There's a lot of talk about shade tree tonight. I just want to note, because I went through all the applications to find out that it was 28 people that took care of those planting trees on their own. We just talked about the plantings, and we probably planted close to 80 trees with the last 3 plantings. I will say we are still at a net loss of trees. If you add those 80, but then subtract the ones that people applied to take down and were approved, we'll probably still have a net loss of trees since the commission started. The good news is now we're actually tracking it, so we know, whereas before we had no idea what was going on with that. And I know we got this comment about trees that 5 minutes to a year. I mean, we're dealing with the natural world, so we all have to recognize that. And we have to recognize that a tree that's not on this red flag list could fall down tomorrow. It's the natural world. So there's a lot of variability. We do the best we can, and I think we're on the right track to identify these trees and then and ask people to take care of them. And then finally, I want to say, Don Greenberg, I'll be at your house tomorrow morning with the voter registration form, no problem. Already did, online. That's my report.
Thank you. I've got a couple comments. First, we last Sunday we had before anything, I want to make sure that people are aware of the trick or treat, the trunk or treat, and the Halloween parade this 30th, this Sunday. People will be able to trick or treat at businesses from 12 to 3. This followed by a Halloween parade at 5. And there will be a trunk or treat from 3 to 5 in the parking lot. There's a QR code, I think, on the website that Recreation's put up. You're going to use the parking lot parking lot there. Yes, I always get that backwards, for that trunk or treat. So just encourage people. We again continue to take steps to get back to normal. We held up Mayor's Wellness Walk this past Sunday. It was a good success. I want to thank the participants, particularly Barb Johnston, Ronald Parker, and Rob Flipsky, who coordinated it. They did a great job. We're now planning for a winter walk. I want to thank the Recreation Department for hosting a flu shot clinic this past Friday. I initially thought that we were also going to have COVID boosters, but they restricted it to flu shots this time around. The Fall Beach Sweep was held Saturday. It was sponsored by Clean Ocean Action Group. Meredith DeMarco, our Environmental Commission Chair, and her team did a great job coordinating that. We are moving forward with some changes in Fletcher Lake and also Sylvan. Fletcher Lake bench replacement and some shoreline maintenance is happening as we speak. I was at Sylvan Lake today watching the Public Works guys on some of this bulkhead weeds that we're trying to get out of the lake. So that's ongoing. Nancy Martin had, we had spoken to her a couple of days ago, Councilman, so she was aware of a couple of things going on there, but there's, we'll follow up on that memo from the chair. The meetings and communications are ongoing there. We're progressing through the final laterals on the phase 2 sewer project. I'm happy to report that the curb and driveway apron work on 2nd and 3rd is in process and going pretty well. We also are putting what they call a skim coat on the asphalt to kind of level it just for the winter. It's not a final coat, that'll happen in the spring. We are submitting a stormwater grant, and just to point on the sewer, I see Mr. Fried up in the back from Avakian Engineering. He's been working with the teams and the subcontractors to get that done. Let's see, we're submitting a stormwater grant request to the state for a study to be done on Bradley Beach. That should be a pre-study. We're going to work with our stormwater engineer to execute that study along with the state. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. there's a brief press conference at the firehouse. The department's generously giving back proceeds raised from their annual 5K run. I won't go into those details because I don't want to steal their thunder tomorrow. Senator Bingo Powell will be attending, who's very involved in community activities like this. From a library standpoint, I'll just mention the items up until our next meeting. November 2nd, there's the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's. There'll be an English and Spanish program that'll recognize those common signs and convey those to people. Thursday, November 3rd, there's a Know Your DNA testing companies. There's a presentation by Eric Nadal to explain the different companies and the pros and cons. The 15th of November is Friendship Rangoli Workshop, which Rangoli is a elaborate floor drawing process to help decorate your entrance of your house. That gives you good luck and joy. So if you need some good luck and joy, go to that on November 15th. And then the Friends of the Library are holding a jewelry sale on November 18th and 19th during library open hours. And that is my report. So with that, I will now go to I'm sorry. To announcements, there are none, and then go to with that. Oh, I'm sorry. There is one announcement. I'm sorry. Rather, because, and let me explain this, because there is I was remiss with the timing of Veterans Day in the next meeting. Mr. William Shuck, who's standing in front of us, works with the borough to really get people for both Veterans Day and Memorial Day veterans, and ask them to either be grand marshals or guests of honor for those events. And I didn't want to wait till the next meeting and not announce that. So my apologies, but I just want Bill to just mention that quickly.
Members and mayor, members of the council, the individual chosen as our guest speaker for Veterans Day is an individual that not only currently protects and serves the borough of Bradley Beach, This individual has been deployed several times to protect this great nation of ours as well. You know, and he continues to do this. This individual is Rafiq Paquette. Rafiq has been with the United States Air Force since 2000. Currently, his MOS or military occupational service is security forces. Basically overseeing base defenses, anti-terrorism training, advanced weapons training, and so on. He is a dedicated law enforcement professional with 16 years of experience in the providing community safety, maintaining peace, decreasing crime rates, and assisting our citizens, as well as continuing this routine patrol. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to present Officer Rafiq Paquette as our guest speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. That's a great choice. I was really pleased to hear that that was a choice. Generationally, it'll be interesting to hear his address on Veterans Day, and we look forward to that. So thank you very much for that. Okay, we'll now have
Mayor, if I could just say something really quick.
Sure.
I'm gonna stand up because I'm addressing all of you. I just want to say something about minutes, if nobody minds. Minutes are the action that was taken, not so much what was said in a meeting. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that, as is your right to say whatever you want about them. I do the best I can with them, and with executive session, I do not have a recording. So when I do them, I am doing them off of memory. And again, it is the action that was taken, not so much what was said. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to public comments, 5-minute limit, single instance. Any public comments? Yes.
On Greenberg, 302 Park Place Ave. Just wanted to talk about the letter I got about the upcoming referendum, which, I mean, I don't know what to call it other than kind of a sham referendum, because, and this is my opinion, and a lot of people may disagree, but we're not being given a choice. We're being given one choice, which in my mind is no choice. Okay, you're being given one choice of a $10 million plus price tag, which is a disputed price tag. And I can tell you right now that even the most ardent supporter of turning the church into a community center does not want to spend $10 million of the taxpayers' money. I mean, I would challenge any supporter to say that they want to spend $10 million of the taxpayers' money. They do not. So I think that because that's one reason I believe it's a sham referendum, we're not being given a real choice. The numbers are disputed. One of the things on the back of this letter says, can this renovation be done for less? And the short answer is no. That was disputed by a member of council with 40 years experience in construction, I think, right? Close. You know, to almost half of what the referendum number is. The other reason I think it's a sham is because we're not being given detail. The actual scope of work, let me find this, has disappeared from the website. It's just not there, and if you don't mind. Would you mind handing that back? I took this today. That's a screenshot of what's available on 319 Lorraine Ave. And the actual scope of work is not there. So we don't know what the detail of it is. The other detail that's not there is the financial detail. You know, it tells us that 1.3 to 1.4 million per year, estimated annual maintenance is $250,000, staffing is about $250,000, principal and debt is $900,000, but there's no detail in there. What's the bond rate? You know, what's the principal? What's the interest? Where are all these numbers? How is somebody to make an informed decision without knowing the detail? And again, why aren't we being given different choices? Why was not this building to apply for historic registration with the federal government and New Jersey. You know, a lot of people think that once you apply for historic registration, you can't do anything. with the building. But that's false. You can still sell the building, you can still sell the building, you can still demolish the building. The only time you can't do it is if you have spent federal dollars. Any non-federal owner of that building can do whatever they want with it, as long as they haven't spent federal dollars. So I think for those reasons, and let me see if I left anything out. Yeah, we haven't looked for grants, we haven't looked for historic registration, there's no transparency, there's really no choice. And when you get a letter in the mail from a government that says, this is an official borough document, not a political campaign document. Well, the only thing that comes to my mind with that is a line from, I'll paraphrase a line from Shakespeare. The administration don't protest too much, methinks, because this is nothing but a political document designed for a directed outcome.
Thank you.
So that's that. On to something a little lighter. When they were talking about the surf school, these guys are aces. As John knows, I volunteer for Surf Rider Foundation, and they help us every year with a family day in Asbury Park. Kids who normally don't get to come on the beach learn how to surf. That surf school is, excuse me, is amazing. And so also they also own Oz Realty, my daughter works there, gives you business. What's the other thing? Wires hanging from poles, and I know Tim's not here today, but what can we do about this? There are lots of poles out there with cable company wires just hanging in the street. I was walking down to the beach today, and at Beach and Park Place, there's cable laying in the street from a cable company. Is there something that we as a town can do to force the cable companies to clean up their mess? That's a question.
Yeah, and Kim has been actively following up with the cable companies. Well, all the, anybody who has wires, she is
Right.
following up actively.
So the proper format will be just to send her the pictures where the pole is located. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Get a poll number if you can.
Yeah, this one was wiped off. It was rubbed out, but I'll have it.
Aaron Strike, 406 Madison Avenue. The gentleman just spoke, I agree with him on the surf camp, but in fact, my 4 grandchildren this year attended it, had a great time. One's 5, one's 8, one's 11, one's 13. The 2 older girls have been on for the last 3 years. And my 8-year-old, the first time go on the surf pool, and the instructors let him go by himself for about an hour. So they're wonderful, great deal, really love it. On the other subject, from the church, I totally disagree with everything that's said. When we bought the church, I guess about 2 years ago, everyone was all hyped up about getting grants, and this guy's gonna pay for a new wood floor, and this guy's gonna do this, and 2 years later, we're just sitting in limbo. Now we're spending, I understand, a couple $100,000 to repair a roof, so the building doesn't totally collapse and fall in. As far as the 10 million, again, the gentleman before, I guess was giving Councilman Bonnell compliment about his close to 40 years in the construction business. Well, I've got over 30 years in construction business. Not that I'm trying to compete, but I asked Mr. Bonnell several months ago when in all this heated argument about the church, and I said to Councilman Bonnell right over there at the end of the meeting, let me ask you a question, in your professional opinion, what do you think it's going to take to do this restoration? He says, about 8 million. Now, maybe 8's less than 10. As far as I'm concerned, I don't want to spend 8 million, or I don't want to spend 5 million. And as far as other choices, there are no other choices. You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. And you can give people 25 pages of itemized numbers. It still comes out to 8, 10, I've heard could be 10, could be 12. But it's not 1 or 2 or 3. So, argue over numbers, I don't want to be in debt for $10 million in town. So, to me, it's kind of, I was the one that pushed the referendum, and we're gonna get one. Now, if the people in the town want to get all this debt, then they can vote it in. But if it goes down, it goes down. That's democracy, right? Majority rules. So let's wait for the referendum and get the results. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Nancy Meadow, Ocean Park condominiums. A lot of what I have to say is repetitive. It also is intertwined. And before I proceed, I just need a point of clarification. Mr. Weber, are you now the liaison for the school?
No, I just don't like
Okay, thank you.
reporting this, right?
Thank you. So, I hope your children are there forever, because if not, we wouldn't hear about it. And between that and the library, they are the two biggest expenditures of my tax dollar. But once again, let's go with things we don't tell the public. Once again, I see people that, whether through subcontracting or direct payment, are in this meeting that have not been introduced to people on Zoom. I don't know why we continue to exclude. I don't know why there's one screen, a smaller one that I'm going to imagine 5 of you can see, and that one is not tilted so that this audience in here can see. But again, why respect the public? With the previous administration, I survived Rehabgate. Since July 2021, with this administration, I have observed Recyclegate, Churchgate, now we have Treegate. There are 2 common denominators in all of that. And again, it just points to this administration and how mismanaged we are. We had a power outage in town. A lovely neighbor stopped by to see if she could help me. I did not need help. But then I had a whole bunch of people knocking on my door, asking me what to do. Had those procedures been outlined for the public, quite honestly, I wouldn't have been disturbed. And it is not my job. Why do I have to continually say things like this? You're embarrassed when you go to meetings with your counterparts from other municipalities. Well, you know what, Mr. Mayor? You should be, because I am embarrassed. I am embarrassed for us and the lack of respect regarding what the residents want. And why people come up here and don't fully disclose their relationships to the borough, I find also unacceptable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Just to clarify, I've never said I was.
No, you know what?
I-
You don't usually answer me, so don't even answer me now. No, you can't pick and choose.
I'm not answering you.
Then don't speak to me.
I'm
don't
not
pick
speaking,
and choose.
not speaking to you. To clarify for the group, I've never said I've been embarrassed by for borough.
Yes, you did. You made it quite clear.
No. Yes,
We'll pull up the minutes. We'll pull up the minutes.
Can I speak on Zoom?
yeah. You're next, yeah, you're next.
Brigitte McGuire, 610 Brinley. Although I very much appreciate the calm and the apologies going around this evening, I'm going to read my prepared comment based on the usual day-to-day. I am very disheartened with how divided our community feels. We aren't divided by red or blue, which is so refreshing, but Mayor Fox, you ignore the public time and time again. Zoom and recycling are just 2 examples, and in your own terminology, you threw a hand grenade into this town regarding the church and created a war amongst the people. For me personally, the church is a moot point, but I want to highlight the division that you instilled in the town. The fact that you put our councilmen in a position not once but twice in executive meetings, not knowing what they were walking into, is poor leadership.
That is the reason for this council not being able to work together. Superior Court Honorable Judge Lisa P. Thornton has had to order this administration to protect the public under the Open Public Meetings Act. You couldn't even follow that statute on your own for the sake of transparency. It's incredibly disappointing how poorly you view us, how you ignore us, and how you only engage with the people who agree with you. You also endorse candidates who have been dishonest as well. Tim Sexsmith has, I think now maybe 3 different stories on how his computer cost us thousands of tax dollars, coining the term Lion Larry. The digital fingerprint proved it was his computer, and Tim admitted to that. You also endorse Ms. Deborah Brunel, who I personally watched and heard during the zoning meeting, being directed by someone in the background on how to vote, and was sworn in again not to have anyone influencing her, and then did it again. It's on our zoning YouTube videos from November and December of 2019. You also endorsed Tom Gavin, who clearly didn't fit one of the 4 requirements to run for council, with proof that he in fact did not reside here in the past 12 months. Mr. Cannon suggested the public pay thousands of dollars to challenge this issue. If our borough attorney is giving us that as our only option when we all know and have the truth in our hands, it simply raises questions of trust in our borough's day-to-day operations. I may seem to be rambling, but the lies upon lies are hard to even keep up with at this point. More people keep joining in these meetings because of how hairy things have gotten just within this year. Many people stand up here every 2 weeks explaining issues and asking questions with proofs, and we get nothing. No data from recycling, no cost on the Oprah attorney for Lion Larry debacle, no detailed information on the benches. Chairs recently started disappearing in this room here, and we are told it's because of ADA compliance. So have we been non-compliant for years prior to this election season, or is that just another lie? I feel I have to question every little thing now, because when it takes a Superior Court judge to protect the people against our own administration and protecting us from you selling our land behind closed doors, I'd say we have a bad situation on our hands. This is exactly why this election season is as ugly as it is, because the lies continue with your endorsed candidates against the others who aren't running smear campaigns. Councilman Bonnell, Weber, and Gubitosi worked their tails off to save us $300,000 tax dollars just this year. I'm pretty sure it's that kind of hard effort that is exactly why you and your endorsed candidates keep going against them. They are saving our money while you are trying to negotiate spending it behind closed doors. If it takes an honorable judge to protect the public from secrets, we have way bigger issues here than all of the distractions such as the church and Tim not wanting to cut down his bad tree. Signs and planting strips and signs stolen from properties just get ignored, dependent on what side of the coin you are on. If it were my sign in the planting strip, I have no doubt code would be enforced. Just like I didn't get the same favors, like the very large 3rd floor Gavin special from the mayor. Tim Sexsmith voted on the shade tree ordinance and then disagreed or found flaws once it was his tree. Rules for thee, but not for me, seems to be the ongoing theme. I am happy I don't sit on the side of special favors because I sit proudly with truth and integrity.
Thank you. Next. Yes.
Okay, hi. Lori
Oh, I'm
Sender.
sorry. I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, so I live at 407 Second Avenue in Bradley Beach.
Could you state your name?
Lori Sender. Sender, like return to sender. So I mean, I grew up in Bradley Beach. I went to the Bradley Beach Grammar School in the 60s. I love this town, but I'm new at jumping into what's going on here. And I guess just sitting here listening to everything, it just sounds like there's a trust issue with you, Mayor, and you're not being transparent. And I'm hearing that over and over. So with that in mind, I just wanted to talk about this church and the $10 million budget that's going to be on the referendum. And I'm kind of just voicing what other people have said. Those aren't really real numbers, they're inflated. I basically have some questions for you, which is, does this budget of 10 million include moving the location of the kitchen? And that's my question. Does it include that in the budget? Do you understand the question?
Yes, there's quite a bit of work in the kitchen. Yeah.
So I guess what I've heard is that the engineers have said that moving the location of the kitchen would cost a ton of money. It's not needed. I understand there's renovation in the kitchen, but moving it. So that's, again, not transparent with what the engineers have said and your budget. In terms of the gymnasium, tearing down the gymnasium, is that part of the 10 million? Because again, the engineers have said that it's structurally sound. It doesn't need to be torn down.
It's not.
But is that 10 million include that?
The 10 million includes tearing it down and rebuilding.
And the engineers, I've been told, said you don't have to do that. The only way you'd have to do that, tear it down, is if there's a rooftop going on, and that's not happening. So again, these numbers, I'm just jumping in at the tail end here, and it's like, what is going on with these numbers? So is it 10 million? Is it 5 million? And that's a big difference. So I don't know the legality of sending out a referendum that's using these inflated numbers in 2 weeks, but it seems to me that that in itself is just, I don't know if it's illegal, immoral, but it shouldn't be where you're, just sending out that number. Why don't you just say, 10 million, maybe 15 million, and let everybody argue about it, which is what's going on in the town, which I agree with that woman that just spoke. It's just divisive. And it's just breeding a lot of discontent. I mean, it's obvious to me as an outsider that you want to tear it down and give it to some developer. But I walk around the town, this summer, and it's like, oh, that building's new, that house is new, that house is new. And it's like, wait a second, what's going on here? They all look alike. It's beginning to look cookie cutter, Does anybody care about just not giving it to developers and turning it into, just a basic town that has an ocean next to it? Anyway, I guess I'm getting off track here, but this increase in taxes is based on how many years? Again, not transparent. Is it 10 years? Is it 20 years? Is it 25 years? Or is it 40 years? And then they talk about, turning it. You don't need to turn it into a community center because we have a rec building. Okay, I know I already raised my son. He's 23, but if I had a 10-year-old who had to go and cross the street on Memorial Drive to get to a rec center, I would have a heart attack every day of my life. So to me, that's not a rec center. If you have to crawl, I can barely drive across Memorial Drive. I can barely make it myself.
It's on this side of Memorial Drive.
Oh, it is? Oh, you don't have to cross Memorial Drive? Okay. I knew somebody would find something wrong with what I'm saying, but the fact is, the other day, a month ago, I went to the library. I walked from 2nd Avenue to the library, and it was like, this is so wonderful. I'm here in 2 minutes. How beautiful is that? Why can't you have a community center in the center, in the church, with senior citizens going there, have theater there? It could be a beautiful, beautiful thing. Do you really want to have a developer just turn it into what's already going on in our town? I mean, I have a house that just turned 100 years old. Someday I'll die and my son won't want it. Do I want a developer to come in and level it because we don't have a mayor who cares about any historic homes?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Sounds like she's dead. Linda Duffy, 312 Brindley Avenue. Thank you for reading my email, Mr. Gilberti, and excuse me, we can't hear you. Oh, every time. Okay. How do I do this? What am I doing?
It's closer. Just speak loud.
Closer. All right. Linda Duffy, 312 Brindley Avenue. I'm not for the church for the simple reason of parking, which kind of surrounds every issue in this town today, between density, site triangles. No one has a place to park. People park in the middle, so nobody else can park. We have homes that have no driveways. We have homes that have shared driveways, but don't use the driveway because
they have an agreement with their neighbor, or they can't get through the two houses because it's too narrow. I have a bigger driveway and I can't back up. I have to get my husband to do it. I'm terrible to it that way. All right, so these site triangles, they're a real big danger in our town. It's not just the street that I notified her about. And I have to say, Ms. Humphrey responded so fast. She came the next morning with her children to see what was going on. And I have to applaud her for that. It was wonderful. Anyway, many streets in our town you cannot see coming out, going north or south. It's a danger. Cars today are higher, a lot of them, darker windows. In the daytime, you can't see through the windows. I almost had an accident, so now I have to drive all the way down to Ocean, come all the way back up, or I come down Main. I hate to go through the side street. It's a danger. Ocean Grove is safer, if believe it or not, to drive. Oh, yes, it's a lot safer. Because the streets are so narrow, you can't go fast, and they have stop signs all over the place. All right, that said, I'd like to see this town work a little harder. You're not even giving our chief security officer the tools to work with by having these side triangles be such a hazard. I'd like to see no more accidents, and I'd like to see Mr. Sexsmith every month or every council meeting tell us how many accidents occurred in town. I mean, you talk about burglaries, I mean, people hitting cars. You should also tell us about motor vehicle accidents that are, and for what reason. No names or anything, of course. And as far as this church goes, I don't want the church for the simple fact there's no parking. And if you think people are going to not park in the neighborhood that surrounds that, you're mistaken. Because out of the 10 houses surround me, there are 22 cars. Not all of them park in the street. Most of them are from renters, full-time renters, and full-time people that live in the town. But otherwise, the renters in the summer, when they come, they bring 4 and 5 cars to a house that's got no parking. So how do we justify the side triangles and the church and the noise pollution from the church? And it's just too many things in our taxes. They've gone up such a lot since I've had a house since 2014. It's incredible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry.
Rich, that's been 600 Third Avenue. I have 3 quickie things here. There might be a procedure change that I'm not aware of, but since I've lived here, when I see something wrong, for example, flowers that are not planted, or the fountain's not working in Third Avenue Park, I simply say hello to G. He's always around in his truck, or I contact him at his office, and he's always getting taken care of. Recently, first off, I haven't even seen him. He used to always attend these meetings. And I haven't seen him in a long time. I haven't seen him in his truck in the neighborhood.
He doesn't have a truck anymore. He's got a car.
Okay.
That's probably why.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's why I didn't notice him got a car. I'll have to look at those. In any event, on top of that, I had texted him. He didn't respond to me, which was very unusual. And then I called the office on 2 occasions, the general number. Sorry. Sorry about that. The general number and asked him to return my call. He couldn't with Pat, his next in command. So my question is this: maybe there's a different process here that I can't go directly to them, that I have to go through you or the DA or anything like that. But he's still around, right?
Yeah, Jesus, right.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe you just caught him on a bad week. Yeah.
Okay, I heard once again about work on the streets skim coating. Mayor, you know, and perhaps the council members know, several years ago, the water department put in the water pipes in our particular intersection, Hammond and Third. The vertical pipe that they put in, when there's a cap, I assume to get access to a valve of some sort, was installed too high. I went to the work crew about a block away, so I was in charge. I pointed that out to him, not to worry when they come back to put their skim coat on, they're gonna fix that. Of course, they didn't, and made it worse. We have sewers put in now, and what they did, it made it worse again. And I absolutely guarantee the skim coat that's gonna be putting on is going to get, what has to be done.
That's temporary.
Okay. The temporary skim coat, I guarantee you, is gonna make it even worse. What needs to be done, not more and more material added, material has to be removed.
For you, yes. Around your area, correct.
Well, thank you for agreeing with me, but I just think that the town failed to support the residents by, in the beginning, going after the water company who created the mistake to begin with. I know that wasn't on your watch, and understand that. And lastly, I had the pleasure of speaking to one of the new to me town employees. He told me he's been around for a while. His name is Todd. He's such a pleasure to speak to. He articulates very, very well. He was patient. He was very, very helpful. And I just thought I'd end my little talk here with a positive.
Because he's watching TV, he's in the other room, so.
Oh,
I'm sure you appreciate
I've
that.
done. Thank you.
No one else? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Mayor, did you call on me? Lauren Egbert, 404.5 Brindley Avenue?
No. You're next.
Sorry, it's kind of hard to follow from here. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jack Gentempo, 103 Fourth Avenue, in Bradley. I'm, in terms of the referendum which is coming out, you know, Crawford there is this $10 million number, which I'd like to see challenged. I'll tell you how we should challenge it. We should send out an RFP to at least a dozen contractors. Send out an RFP to a dozen contractors and at least see what that number really is. Because when the rubber hits the road, those numbers are coming down. Those numbers are going to crumble. So if we could possibly get that organized, I think that'd be a step in the right direction. We can verify what this number is supposed to be. But when these guys come in and general contractors, and they know how to sharpen pencil, let's see what happens. Secondly, there's a lot of negative talk, very negative talk, about we can't raise the money. We can't raise the money. We have a marvelous story to tell. We have state and federal grants. We have civic associations. We have corporate donations. We have personal donations. We can raise the money. Come on. I have a lot of confidence in this deal, and I think it's a terrific place. It's historic cultural community center. Why we're throwing it away, I'll never know. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So Lauren, want to get the young lady first?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Lauren, Lauren. Thank you.
Just one second. Right. Then when you do get to me, I'm falling asleep at the wheel. This is Lauren Egbert, 404.5 Brindley Avenue. And I'd like to thank Jack for his comments. But just a couple things with reference to the church. I think to avoid repeating myself from things that I've said time and time again with respect to real choices and, and a process that brings people together to examine those choices, I would simply endorse everything that Mr. Greenberg has said. A few separate points. When the subject comes up about parking, I absolutely, first of all, I'd like to say that I completely accept and respect the people who don't want that church to become a community center simply because they don't see that as something of value, and those who don't want to see exorbitant tax increases. I certainly don't want to see anything like the $705 a year number that went out in the fact sheet. And I would be personally against that. But on a few details, you know, when I hear about the parking, and I do understand parking being a problem. I live around the corner from the church. I have a shared driveway, and we have, you know, Holy Ascension down the block. I have to say, when there are weddings there, parking got slightly more difficult, but it's almost negligible because it's so difficult anyway. And it gives me great joy to see those weddings and those events. It's an asset to my neighborhood. I am not sure that the people right next to the church building are making the comparison when they think of the parking they have today, of what parking would look like with 4 houses and 3 back apartments on that property. You're talking 2 12-foot curb cuts there on Madison. Now, those are a lot of people with no driveways. You know, now you're talking, none of my neighbors that's not true. Almost none of my neighbors with driveways park in them unless they absolutely have to. My neighbors with renters in the back apartments many of them do not allow their tenants to park in the driveway. So you'd be talking 4 houses times 4 bedrooms times 3 apartments times 3 more bedrooms and all those cars. You know, and then when they become Airbnbs in the time when owners are not there, or if investors are now owning those properties, you may wind up thinking that a community center with small venue was a nice neighbor. That point 1. The second is I've heard a lot of, lately that, we have this private organization, the Friends of the Bradley Beach Community Center, who, had all this time to get donations and had all this time to get grants. The one thing that I heard every time a fundraising was approached is, how can you do fundraising when we have no idea if this building is going to be knocked down by the town, or if the town is keeping it, or what the status is? So that's just not real. You also can't ask for grants when you don't have any commitment to at least explore going forward. So there's been zero opportunity to get funding, and the numbers that went out didn't allow for possible grants. They didn't allow for revenues. And I think I'll leave that there, as opposed to listing all the possibilities, and that could be a good thought experiment. But on the third thing I will say is that this is a particularly unfortunate time right before the referendum for the engineering report that came out in June, that listed item by item by item the proposed work and expenses. It's not a good time for it to go missing and not be easily found on the website. So I would ask for that to be corrected. And thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, 1 second. Yep. No one else?
We have
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Paula Shakin on Zoom.
Yeah, let me get this one first and we'll get.
Jim Burns, 401 Fifth, Bradley Beach, 219 Dogwood, Bayville. Wasn't going to speak tonight, but just can't help myself. First of all, the site triangles are a disaster all through town. If there's a van or some parked within that 15 feet, it's crazy. The last few meetings, I haven't heard of any budget shortfalls on the rise in health insurance, going up 24% in the state. The natural gas rise, is our budget going to absorb that? I know contractually with the police and employees, you need to hold those benefits until the end of their contracts. I haven't heard anything about that, and that's a lot of money. I sit on other boards in the county that they have big holes in their budgets. And I hate to say it, but I've been in a contractor for 50 years. I know I look a little winner, I started in 1971, right from Vietnam, but I've been in and out of that church. And I take it very neutral. And it's unfortunate that it's become this political football. I think you didn't do it a good service with putting it out in the silly season. Maybe the referendum should have been put out by itself, where there's no competition at who hates it, who loves it, who's lying and who's this. There's so many variables there. You know, if the work was done through the town, would it have to be done prevailing wage? Could it be done in a project labor agreement? This young gentleman here was right to get companies like Turner, Epic, Morse Diesel, and get them in there and say, hey, what do you think? Or put a design build out there. Or sell it and lease it back. Or it doesn't really all have to come back. I've walked through that gym, and that gym needs a lot of work, a lot of structural work. And then there's little alcoves off of there that don't have to be rebuilt. So maybe you want to take the big piece of pie and keep what you want, or not, or get rid of it and then deed restrict the property. People don't know you deed restrict it. Single family home, no back garage. It's got to be blue or red. You can do anything you want. You know, you're the council. And as far as Ms. Brunel, I've been with her about 20 years. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, but I've been on a lot of boards. And if I sit there during a meeting and I'm in the same room and I hear something that just doesn't work, I'll let her know. Let's face it, she's a housewife librarian. What the hell does she know about buildings? She knows about, like what Mr. Weber's been talking about, trees and surf. What's he know about building? Right, so whatever input I can do. So that young lady, if that's the best shot she's got at Miss Brunel, God bless her, because I can't tell her how to vote, believe me. Thank you, God bless our vets.
Thank you, yes.
Thomas J. Cohen, 612 Third Avenue. Miss Nauman, could you help me with this ordinance resolution 2022-250 that was just passed tonight?
If you did, we got a little.
Oh, sure, that's usually not a problem.
It wasn't passed. It wasn't passed.
It wasn't passed. Okay, I just want to know if there was a conflict that Councilman Sexsmith seconded the ordinance that benefits him.
He abstained.
He abstained from the vote, but he seconded the ordinance when he benefits from the ordinance.
He
It says
abstained.
right here,
from the vote.
certain property owners with violation notices pertain to potentially hazardous shade tree. He's admitted that he's one of those people. So how is he allowed to second the motion? Even though it didn't pass, I'm just procedurally questioning.
Procedurally, if it passed, I would say we probably might want to recall the vote
Thank you,
and,
that's all I need.
and
That's
redo it, but
perfect.
in the
That's
event
exactly
it
what I
did not
was-
pass, I think it.
Perfect, that's perfect. I just did want to comment on one of the gentlemen who spoke about that the church has been in limbo. Yes, it's been in limbo for over 800 days under the Engelstad and Fox administrations. It's not the church's fault, it's the administration's fault. The property has never been maintained, so that's where the limbo was created. I just wanted to clarify that. And in terms of the comments from the gentleman who just spoke about Ms. Brunel, I'd like to say that the zoning board of adjustment, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Mel, is a quasi judicial body. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Is the
that?
zoning board of adjustment a quasi judicial body?
It's an argument that's commonly made
Yes,
to hold them accountable for certain.
yeah, so should voting members of a quasi judicial body interact with people on a case that they're working on Zoom?
Legally, I don't think there's any restrictions against that ethically or morally. I mean, it would be, I would have to know the circumstances of what the communications were.
Well,
in
it
order
was
to
a,
respond.
it was a zoning board application. She's on a Zoom call and somebody in the room is telling her what to do. I mean, it's a quasi judicial body. If you didn't have Zoom.
DJ, were you in the room too?
Excuse me. I was an objector in the case and I objected to Mr. Kittrick on that and she did have to be re-sworn in that she wouldn't do it. She did do it, but it's a quasi judicial body. It's just like a judge and jury. There's nobody going to go into the jury area and say, hey, here's how you vote. It's patently improper. And I just had another question about the executive session tonight.
Is the executive session gonna take place? It says if necessary?
I don't believe there's a resolution.
No,
for-
there is no executive session. and
Oh,
I always put if
okay.
necessary when there isn't one.
Oh,
Just
okay.
in case, just in case something had happened, if there was an emergency, and it had to end up going in there, you should put if necessary on there.
Great, okay, because Mr. Fox had said to the co-star that he was gonna go into executive session to possibly appeal the Cohen versus Borough Valley Beach. So that's not.
Not this evening, no.
Okay, great, thank you
You're
very much.
welcome.
Yes.
Somebody looking at it to 18th. I just have a couple of questions. In terms of the tree inventory and the shortage of trees, whatnot, has any consideration been given to planting the strip that is between Second and Third, the first like Ocean Ave block, the 100 block? It's, what has been the storage facility for all of the sewer work for the past year, but they're obviously doing the curb work now and whatnot. And I mean, the western side of Second and Third is beautiful. It's a beautiful park area. It seems like it's really unused.
I would love to see the same thing happen at the east end of that street that happened at the west end, where the park was extended with trees. It would be great.
Fountain.
And you could put a lot more parking along there. It'd be
Right.
great.
I mean, benches could be a lovely additional park that many people could use. So is that something perhaps that could be entertained? At some point possibly?
Outside of my mind, it hasn't, but I would say that we could, but we haven't discussed it at all.
Okay, perhaps maybe that's something we could in the new year with that. Also, I believe a couple of meetings ago, you had stated that we were running quite positive from the beach revenues this year. I forget if it was a percentage or a number. Being that I'm sure there's a set budget that we work within or that Kim works with, when we find ourselves with a little bit of an added bonus, how does that process work for what that extra money will go to? Is it something that the council sits? Is it something that Kim would bring to the council? How would that surplus work?
Stay with the beach.
Right, I mean, I know that, but when we say the beach, what is really encompassed in that?
You won for 12 years until you get away.
I know. But I'm honestly asking
I
that.
think it would go to surplus, and then the council would decide as part of the budget process if we wanted to spend some portion or all of that surplus towards enhancements for the beach. So
Because, I mean, I know there's been complaints about the playground that came before our time, and yes, going, like I said, I find it odd that there's nothing, shade sails or something for kids there. I mean, you put out metal equipment that, can burn people. So perhaps some of that surplus can do something or more age appropriate, equipment to encompass everybody, but things like that. I just want to know what the process is or how that happens when we do find ourselves with a surplus.
Workshop.
So perhaps one of you could bring that up as a workshop in the coming year, or to whomever's voted in. Two other odd questions. This is more for Erica and just my ignorance, because I look and keep mine. What time does town hall open?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Is there any instance prior to 9 when a non-employee would be having access to the building?
A non-employee?
Yeah. Resident, anybody that's not employed.
You shouldn't, no.
Okay, okay. And last but not least, in terms of, I forget your name, sir, I'm sorry. But, according to my comment about Deb, like I said, when people are being rude, it would have been nice for her to apologize. And we had a lengthy talk after that. But what you just did to your poor partner.
It's sorry.
Oh, that's right. I take off.
You can't.
But what that gentleman just did, unfortunately, was, like I said, just reiterates why, I want people that, can do the job here, that will stand up, will be here and do the job here. And I applaud those that are here to doing that. And I hope you're successful in your election. I can't wait till it's over. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. I'm getting some champions. Been waiting patiently.
Hi, my name is Tessio, 401 McCabe. I'm just noticing something tonight, speaking of trees, as I'm sitting with our papers on my left. I was wondering if it would be cost saving and saving trees if we could go double-sided on all of our paperwork that we do that. I don't know if it's just tonight, I've never noticed it before.
Yeah, I do double siding.
Okay, maybe it's just tonight.
Mhm.
That was just one side. Okay. So that's it really. I'm not gonna, I always mention 217 McCabe Ave, Irvington Manor, just continue my exasperation with like what goes on there. And I just, I email our code department and basically just get a response that it was looked at and is closed. So just want to mention that again.
Thank you.
That's it.
Someone else?
We have.
Oh, Paul, I'm sorry. Sorry, Paul Shannon.
Paul Shapkin, 411.5 Lorraine Avenue. I'm surprised that nobody has really mentioned the new website for the borough, which appeared last week without any fanfare. It's certainly an attempt to improve things. At this point, I'll reserve judgment. Obviously, it's a work in progress. It's such a work in progress that every 12 hours that I check to see what's listed there for 319 Lorraine and do all possible searches to find information, I find that some things that were there before are not there. And surprisingly, I found some reports there just appearing today that were never there. One report that, in fact, Mayor Fox, you had said was public knowledge months and months ago, even though I could not find it at the time and could not find it until today. And that is the initial due diligence facility evaluation, mechanical, plumbing, fire protection, and electrical, the MEP analysis. And basically, why is this important? It's important because it mentions that the 4 boilers in the church, in fact, are in fair condition. Now, the cost estimation that amounted to $10 million includes the complete demolition of all the plumbing, heating, electrical systems, including the complete demolition of those 4 boilers that are in fair condition, according to this report. Now, this, you may think I'm being petty, but we're talking about a $750,000 item here to replace those boilers in the heating system, which if you read through this initial report, it would seem that in fact, it's not something that it has to absolutely be demolished. It's in fair condition. It's not that particularly old. It has some life left in it. Why has not the process looked at the numbers in the cost estimation, item by item, and evaluated them against the engineer's own reports to find out if in fact they really are things that should be done? I find it really off-putting that a process this bad would come up with such a bogus number. And I say bogus on purpose. $10 million is absolutely ridiculous. And anybody, any professional coming in to study these reports would easily be able to point out where we could come in at certainly half, I think even less than half of what's listed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Mia Mullen, 4th Avenue. And probably the reason why I didn't give my full address is because I had something stolen off my lawn last night. And it has to do with the election. And I still have it on my mind, the letter that you sent to us, Mayor Fox, saying that you would not be able to work with the current councilman, and you were endorsing other councilmen so that you would be able to, I guess, do your job. So I wonder, with January being so close, the election is now just in a couple of weeks, what will happen if you don't, if the candidates you're endorsing don't get elected? I worry about that because I moved into this town 7 years ago, and I really felt like it was a good place and things were being run, and I've now been exposed to so much more because I guess it's an election year. But it's really made me wonder, are you going to be able to do your job if your candidates that you've endorsed have not gotten elected? And what are you going to do in January when the current councilmen stay in office? It's on my mind. I'm sorry. And I would think it should be on other people's minds too.
Yeah, I just wondered if you gave thought to it. You know, and an odd thing happened to me, and I don't know if I should report it to the police or not. I don't know. You know, it's not a monetary value, but it is freedom of speech. I had a vote no sign taken off of my lawn, and I had other candidate signs on my lawn. And I don't think there's any candidates, or actually, you know, I'll admit it was for Jane and Alan. I don't think they paid for any of the vote yes signs. I don't think they paid for the vote no signs. This is just something I did on my own. But yet it was stolen off of my lawn, and it was very disturbing to me. It makes me feel very uncomfortable being in this
Yeah,
town.
certainly cover that with the police chief and.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
for the record, I just wanted to say that, and I think the stealing of the signs is really just an infringement on my freedom of speech, and I would never do that to anybody else.
I agree.
I think it's a very sad state, and something has happened in the climate of this town and has changed it to be that way. Concerning.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Okay, just one last thing. I heard from Bob from the fire department tomorrow night, when they're giving out the awards and Bingo Paul's there, they're also serving pastries. Please come, 7 p.m. tomorrow night, because they work so hard and they'd love to see everybody there. And they're gonna be giving out the awards and money after their 5K, and they just distribute it to people. So they love everyone there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no
Can I
other.
just check the second screen on Zoom?
There's
I got one, yeah, I was gonna get you.
one second, sorry.
Nope.
Don't see any kids up there. Okay, we're good.
Hey, tell Matt he can go. Or Matt.
Matt, if you're on here, no.
Chief Query asked to make a comment, so I'm gonna.
Yeah,
I hate to say this, I hate to contradict, Councilman Gubitosi, but this woman brings up a good point, and I quite frankly don't understand. I've had this conversation thousands of times. You need to contact the police department in real time. The councilman said, if there's a public safety situation, let them know. No, let us know. We need to know. We need to know to protect you. So please, I keep asking every so often to meetings, please let us know. And then, ma'am, I'll have the officer take a report.
Sorry, I got a new sign, but it'll be interesting to see.
Well-
It will be on my lawn tomorrow. So
Well,
why
again,
am I having that?
Again, we need to know this, we need to know this in real time, not, we don't, we don't monitor the social media and things like that.
Yeah, but you can watch my-
It makes no sense for you to wait until you come here, stand up and tell the council, because quite frankly, the council doesn't have anything to do with it.
I know that, but the mayor already said he's endorsing certain.
That's neither here nor there. I don't
have.
have any concern about that at all. My concern is public safety. And public safety is my responsibility, not even theirs. It's my responsibility, okay? So please,
No, thank you.
I'm begging you, please, everyone, real time. That's the only way things get fixed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.